Chapter 5:19 Lord, Land and Family. Wife, is it done? I asked as we stood in front of Bree's home. It is done. Took us quite the resources to make, though. Alina replied. What we were talking about was the project I entrusted her with. When I was in Cyrodiil, I sent many messages to my people and associates around the continent telling the specific instructions or asking for favors and information. My wife had the task of purchasing all the player homes across Skyrim, which were 5 in total, along with other 3 places for the holds that had no player homes. Aside from Falkreath and Dawnstar, we have completed the network, she added. What happened with Falkreath and Dawnstar? I asked. The Jarls are not friendly with us, you know. Jarl Skald the Elder and Jarl Sigir are not your biggest fans. I get it. Dawnstar is actually close by and Falkreath suffered from the attack on Helgen, so the situation is not that bad at all. We'll figure it out. Now, inside Bree's home. We walked in as a party of 12. It was me, Alina, Joe, Nefertiti, Wolfer, Ela, Miranda, Mirren, Isha, Jax, Beth, and finally, Lydia. The house may not be vast enough, but that wasn't the idea here. Bree's home was redecorated by the careful touches of Alina, who transformed the old thing into a nice and cozy place to rest in. Still, the most important thing was that gate-like object which was added in the small room on the ground floor. A portal station. This was the intended purpose of purchasing all the player homes, and that is to make a fast travel network that takes me between the hold the fastest way possible. Lydia, I know it is illegal to teleport and levitate inside the city, but I don't give a damn, are we clear? John asked Lydia with a dangerous smile. All right. Perfect. This is for the betterment of the world anyway. You will be using it a lot, and also I watch out for cliffs, dear. They are so very tempting. I said, warning her about something that may or may not happen. Now, husband. Don't scare our new housecarl. Alina interfered after she activated the portal, pushing me away, then looked at Lydia. You report to Julliner. It seems that my dear wife will activate the policy of keeping all unauthorized females at a safe distance from me. I wasn't thinking of anything anyway. Either way, I was now just facing the portal that will take me back to Winterhold. Truthfully, I have complicated feelings at the moment. It is complicated. Just go ahead, will you? Alina lightly pushed me forwards, and I stepped in the portal, trying to think positively. Winterhold, the historical capital of Skyrim and the home of knowledge and politics that long since sank under the sea of ghosts. Winterhold of the past was a sorry place plagued by hate and skepticism between the common folks and the mages, but one man reformed that waste into a power that can't be looked down upon. Winterhold of today is a massive trading hub that sits upon the coldest parts of the Sea of Ghosts and the capital city of magic in Skyrim. The docks have expanded further and further to rival that of Solitude and Windhelm, to the point where it extended between the small islands to the north. The shipbuilders of Winterhold now have a guild of their own, separate from the Dare Dragon Company, but still loyal to the House of Dare. The town expanded yet past the old walls, giving birth to newer districts and slums. The buildings started to take a new form to contain more residents by stacking apartments on each other, rather than building independent houses. This was no longer a city, but rather a machine powered by various races and origins. Rather than having the time to be racist against each other, work and money were the aspects of the community in Winterhold. Either with force or reason, advancements took place when people needed it. Businesses took places outside the umbrella of the dominating Dare Dragon Company, and diversity became a theme. This, of course, wasn't the end of it. With positivity comes negativity, and as money increased, so did crime. With a war raging outside the hold, refugees hoarded outside the city. With the work market endlessly demanding workers, many businesses lost and many kept struggling. It was a merciless place, yet the haven all wanted. The original natives of Winterhold couldn't be distinguished anymore, but they are now living on the better side of the community, being envied for being here first. That is the way of life in the new Winterhold. The bloodiest image of capitalism was incarnating in that city, and everyone was getting addicted to it. On the other hand, Whispering Town became larger and larger, taking away the stone quarry business from Sarthal. With Jarl Career and Thane Alina instructing the southern road to be fortified, the new quarry was set up near the mine, and the Dare Dragon Company hired a lot of Dunmare to start digging. Alina was even smart enough to allow the construction of a temple for Azura under the shade of Azura's gigantic statue to gather the support of the Dark Elves, even though it was against Alina's own faith. Away from the east of the hold, the heart of Winterhold was Sarthal, or Neo-Sarthal, as officially called. Sarthal had a new temple for the Nordic divines, and many clans moved there, including the Moonblades, after the destruction of their home after the Battle of Winterhold. The Firemans also constructed a massive manor, which were Jonrad and Hilda Firemane. Aside from the housing, the Nordic population of Sarthal increased massively in celebration for the revival of the ancestral home of mankind itself. All was good and fine, but what impacted the city the most was the Museum of Sarthal, the grand building that was under the direct supervision of the House of Dare, managed by their retainer Silas Vesuvius. This museum became a hot spot for the scholars and mages around Skyrim, High Rock and Morrowind. The three main settlements of Winterhold had a fourth town constructed half a year ago by Clan Moonblade, Sarek Headtown, also known as Sarek. This town was built to the west near Dawnstar as an expansion for the overflowing dock of Winterhold and to harass Dawnstar economically. Sarek was a natural fortress from the sea and a very secure location on land. It already had a lighthouse constructed ages ago and run by a Redguard family that Alina managed to save from a Falmer attack. Sarek was not just a dock and a sea fortress but had a very significant historical value, as this is the place where Iskramor and the 500 companions landed from Atmara, a sacred spot to the men. John promised to exploit Winterhold not only by its resources but by its overall value. Alina followed those plans as the current head of the company and added her passion as a Nord to it. Following her example, many clans put their heart and soul into the land, making something John couldn't even imagine. His dreams on the painting were beautiful, but in reality, he wasn't the only painter with endless love for Skyrim and Winterhold. On the end, not only the humans were the ones who participated in Sarek, but their neighbors were the giants who herded their mammoths in the artificial groves nearby. These giants were the ones that were chased from the Pale by Jarl Skald of Dawnstar and were forced to live in the ice wastes of Winterhold until John and Alina grew the artificial groves for them. The Artificial Groves is an ambitious project that John didn't have the chance to finish, but with the help of Alina and the Cult of Kine, it was intended to grow a forest north to Sarthal. Alina and her cult started to put the pine saplings in the snow wasteland, but it was too hard to grow anything, so she asked the Guardians of the Grove, a branch of the Cult of Kine residing in Kinesgrove, to transfer Spriggans to Winterhold. The process was dangerous and almost impossible, but no one gave up on the dream of building the first artificial forest. With the ambitious project greatly helping the giants who reside between Sarthal and Sarek, it was separated into multiple groves to further manage them without hindering the trade routes. With a strong alliance with the giants, Winterhold was no longer a place any could challenge. It hasn't just grown but overgrown and attracted all the clans around it, swearing loyalty to the House of Dare as its bannermen and shield thanes. From that point, many coveted Winterhold. Organized crime and espionage were the main themes of Winterhold's trouble, thus steps in the Guardians of Winterhold. The Black Pigeons, also known as Team Zero, the ghost that doesn't exist. Jullinar's private force and anti-espionage unit in the Dare Corps. Imperials, Stormcloaks and Thalmor spies were systematically discovered and executed through the hold. On the surface, Winterhold may be at peace with all, but in the shadows, there were rivers of blood curved into the pure snow. With Alina leading John's dream, Jelinar was protecting it from the shadows. Understandably, the Shadow Unit was not enough to protect Winterhold, as it is very limited to intel gathering and anti-espionage, so the main striking force of Winterhold was quite the issue. After the Battle of Winter, the Empire and Solitude realized how cunning Winterhold was in the matter of regulating recruitment in the Dare Corps, which meant that not only they can break the legal limit but also muster quite the force. It led to a very strict regulation to manage and control that force, and the Dare Corps wholeheartedly complied to be limited to a 1,000 Dare trooper. The guards of Winterhold were former Dare troopers, which meant they had divided loyalty, but they were also limited by law to quite the same number. This meant that the Empire was limiting Winterhold to 2,000 units in total, but was that truly a thing? Johnrad and Hilda Firemane were their little project behind the scene, and by little project, it means the warband of Winterhold consisting purely of the members of the new clans and sneakily a lot of former Dare troopers. This force was unlisted and completely unofficial, divided on all the clans but in the secret documents under Alina's pillow. That's 10,000 units ready to huff and buff wherever she points. This is Winterhold. Winterhold City, the capital of commerce and magic. The Whispering Town, the mine of fortune. Sarthal, the cultural home and impenetrable bastion. Sarek, the thriving port. With many villages, giant settlements, training camps, work spots and unearthed treasures spurting all over, the hold was in its best image for the arrival of its boss, the Big Boss. "We are ready," Alina spoke as she looked past the door of a new residence at the edge of Winterhold City. This was the new house which will be claimed by the Dragonborn in the future as his base of operation in the city. Inside the house, everyone gathered with John in the center. He was immersing himself in the sensation of homecoming while the others were covering themselves with heavier clothes. It is summer, all right, but Winterhold is called with that name for a good reason. A lot has changed. I truly missed a lot. John finally spoke as he opened his eyes. No. Alina replied and held his hands. Everything you love was never misplaced. Your people, your family, your clan. It just rose up to your level, my dragon. John smiled and got closer to his wife. You outdid me. No. Only one person would dare to start all this, and he started it all right. You know what, the past 2 years almost doubled our population, so not all of the people know you. Why don't you go and claim the spotlight on your own? Alina's words were tempting as they filled John with pride. He looked past the door and he could no longer resist it. His spotlight, his stage, his scene, his crown and his rightful throne. The town that was just some broken buildings surrounded by some walls and buried under snow and corruption. He arrived at it when it was void of hope and had nothing left to lose. He built a bathhouse to make the money circulate and invested in any trade or labor available. Even with the Jarl against him, he put him down smoothly and took the lead, establishing a company. Then the pirates came and he fought them at that cliff and in those waters, that cliff which is covered by wide stairs and those waters which are filled with trading ships. He went wider and taller, expanding to every direction. He brought a master alchemist to the town and regulated business and enhanced it. The East Empire Company tried to devour him early on, but it ended in bed somehow. Windhelm and the Empire wanted to divide the cake with him, and he sent them home empty-handed with a fleet that dominated the water with no sails, going against the current and defying the tide for all it cares about. He expanded further and further, making his pocket reach as deep as the royal coffers. They called him a monster, an irregular, a beast. He took these names to the heart and never stopped. Those who hated them for no reason were gladly given some real reasons to hate him as he emptied their coffers and grew Winterhold further. And when an army came to his door, the army was buried at the gates of Sarthal. John Dare and Winterhold, there was never a better match. He is its soul and she is his body. He loved her and she loved him, and he missed her so much. As he opened the door to meet his dear, a hand stopped him, so he looked back. It was Wulfur giving him that thing. Ah, right. John Dare had a particular robe. The red sleeveless one with red plates on it. He always wore it open. Last time he wore it was at the Battle of Winterhold, and it was torn badly. He had to dress for the occasion. Your beard is a bit overgrown and please let your hair loose, Jull said. Can I go now? He was being held back for trivial things, but the others were as excited as he is, so it must be perfect at least. You are perfect. Hurry before they remember anything else. Ela pushed him past the door, and he was finally outside the manor. Truth be told, he was barely ready. The manor was directly on the main street, so no one stopped for him. He was noticeable for his height and clothing, but seeing the firemen's in Winterhold was something very common. Life didn't stop for him, people didn't applaud and girls didn't throw flowers in his ways. That was nothing to him, he didn't need applauding or recognition, he only needed to see the people, the buildings, the life. He looked at every person working around, carrying wood or hammering nails with great pride. He was moved by their sight as they were the extension of his will and the echo of his work. A step further would bring him to more life and advancement. More and more, the things people built, the steps they took after him, he could see himself in them. There is nothing he wouldn't do for those people. He walked in the street as if he was touching the air that flowed around him. He knew this place by heart even though most of the building went up by a level or two. Some eyes fell into him. He smiled even if he never saw them before. They felt him as much as he felt them. That bond was strange and powerful. They never understood it, but they knew he was someone they trust. Someone who walks on a great path for all of them, for selfishness and selflessness. John's presence was strong in this place. He was too noticeable and too attractive. He was felt by those who feel bonded to this land like him, those who see Winterhold as home. He was also felt by those who lurk in the shadows as the shadows were strangling them. He is not just a man, inside Winterhold, John is the man. The law. The one who ascended to protect the land, thus the landed ascended for him in return. This was as anything else, a magic. It was not John's magic or the magic of any mage. It was the magic of the land. John loved Winterhold and she loved him back, that is the magic. Talos used the same magic to convey his love for his legion. Talos told them that he will reshape the land which is his for them. John was the same, he was drawing the hearts and the eyes after him. He is no divine, but he was once a demi. The love that makes the divine powers him now. He is there bathed with it, and the more people see him, the stronger it gets. There is no longer a need to point and say this is John Dare, it was already known. He was followed by men, women and children. He was followed by his wife and his friends. They all felt the land with him. He walked the new streets, the old streets, Shalader's Plaza, the Market Square, the Temple of Kine. Every place recognized him as much as he recognized them. Hundreds followed him, more watched him from the windows. Elishka recognized him right away and almost panicked. She seems to have put on a lot of weight those past couple of years. Angium saw John and dropped whatever in his hands. Trudvar was on the verge of tears. The vendors and the masons who worked with him before anyone else are now the wealthy the influential, who came running to walk right behind him announcing that they are the first lackeys. Everything about this cold piece of land on the northernmost edge of the continent was just warm. Soon, John was in front of his house. He wanted to go in as he felt many presences there, but something stopped him. Not far from the house, there was a small platform made of earth with a sword stuck on it. Bloodskull. John felt the powerful connection with that sword awakening after a long slumber. What is this sword doing here? The last time John had that sword was when he infused the last of his divine power inside of it and sent it above the Tower of Music to protect the land in his stead. Not long after you left, some Nord brat from a big clan came and annoyed Alina. Seemed like he said something about you to her, causing her anger to boil, but before my hand or Alina's eyes got to him, A bolt of red lightning came down and split the boy in half. What we saw after was this sword stuck in the ground. Wulfr said. We tried to remove it from the ground, but it was impossible to lift. Wulfr had to spend a whole week lifting the ground under it to make an earthen platform and not harm the passers-by. Alina continued. People came from all around the place trying to pull it out, but no one ever could. The sword would then fly from its place whenever there is some big fuss, solve the trouble by creating big holes in the ground, and swoosh return back. Jullinar demonstrated. Hee, that's classic. John laughed as he remembered the will he left inside the sword. It must have caused a lot of trouble, but now it was time for it to rest. You exhausted too much power, didn't you? John held the handle and pulled it out. Time to rest, old friend. With the sword being effortlessly pulled out, the earthen platform it slept in crumpled, but that wasn't the only aftermath. A strong cheer came from everyone who followed him. Many tried to pull the sword to the point where a few legends were formed about the sword, but now as it is finally out, only one truth remains. Winterhold progress will never end. John Hild. Mother. Here was it. The hug I waited for. I may have grown strong, but I'm still overpowered by Hilda whenever she finds me. How blessed I am. Cousin. John Hild. Boy. It was Hilda who came out first from the house. It seemed that Alina called for the whole family to gather here today. Following Hilda were my cousins and my uncles. Even my grandmother is here. People. I'm back. As soon as Hilda let me go, I was held by Hafthor and Vladimir, who pulled me in. Uncle Tyr was there as well. This is impossible. No one told us you're coming. Man, it is really you. Drag him in quickly. Someone send those people away. The situation was too chaotic and hectic. All the relatives were here and none of them expected me. It is good to be back. How are you all? I asked. Good. Great. We're fine. I was surrounded by my people in my house. Most of us are red-haired and blue-eyed to the point where it caused the newcomers to get scared. I can see Mirren hiding behind Isha from the too much Nordness in one place. Bring him some meat. He looks thin. Grandma, wait. Eat. There is no refusing it when Grandma Jenna stuffs the food in your mouth. Just let me chew. It was a messy yet warm situation. Everyone was here and everything was interactive. Even the kids were causing an absolute mess, but it was fun to watch. Hey, leave John alone, you stupid bunch. John, come and see. Hilda, who disappeared for a minute after I came in, was dragging me away from the gathering. Where? Here. Hey, John Hild. The one who greeted me was Bjorna. Cousin, so nice to see you. Wait. Don't tell me. I saw a child in her arms and I was almost freaking out. Beowulf. Wulfr introduced me. You son of a gun. Come here. I held the boy carefully from Bjorna, and he seemed unwilling to be taken by unfriendly hands. This is your uncle, Wulfr said. What's up? Wulfr and Bjorna had Beowulf not long after I left. The kid is 2 years old now and he looks like Wulfr almost to a scary point. Congratulations, brother. I handed the boy back to his parents. Thank you. We'll see what kind of a demon spawn you will bring to this world. Wulfr joked carefreely and the other laughed, but for some reason, Alina and I were facing each other at the moment and it didn't feel like a laughing matter to us. I didn't want to be a mood killer, so I smiled and nodded. Hey, you still have to meet those two. Hilda pulled me over further in the house and there were the two she wanted me to meet. Oh my god. You two are so cute I could eat you. Come here. I ran towards Thor and Idun as soon as I saw them. My little brother and sister. The cutest in the world. Ha! Aha! Once they saw me, they reacted right away. I can't believe how this life is mine, so blessed with 2 little siblings like these. I feel like getting purified and will almost cry right now. Thor and Idun are my little siblings born during my second labor. Say no more about other people's babies. Those two are cute all the way to Aetherius. Thor has short hair and long bangs. He seemed like the kind that likes to suck his fingers, but he had the airs of a troublesome child. Idun, on the other hand, had buffy cheeks and her hair was gathered above her head, as she sat on her own and looked at me with her wide eyes. Look at that little cutie. You are my little sister? How can our rotten family have such a pure being? I said as I teased her cheeks, but Thor started hitting my hand with his toy. It was fun to see my little siblings. I bought them a lot of gifts from Somerset and elsewhere, but I never know what is suitable for someone their age. Still, in this harmonious air, the most undesirable voice was heard behind. Hands off my daughter. Without any warning, I felt a large palm striking my hull back, as if the wrath of Fire Titan was trying to go through me. I almost crumbled from the sudden pain, but I endured while standing up. Jonrad, what are you doing? You mad? Hilda shouted at Jonrad. Humph. No one touches my daughter without going through the process of elimination to eliminate all the darkness of the world of their dirty hand. Only then they can come in contact with my daughter. Even Thor knows that. I could hear that idiot of a father talk about something as I stood up. For goodness sake, Hilda was holding her forehead troubled from that idiot. Fine, I'll handle him. Ha! Out of nowhere, I buried my fist in that man's abdomen, making him bend forward. Co-ward, he said, agonized from the punch in his guise. Ugly me. What's up? Abhorrent child. Jonrad rose up to face me only to look at each other face to face. What on Nern? Oblivion. Us two had a look at each other's faces, and to our utter surprise, we had the same hair and beard styles. You bastard! Son of a... This was a big taboo in our book. The two of us would never share the same style one way or the other, but with the same light beard and long hair, this is bound to turn ugly. I'll rip that face of yours off. I'll tear apart your ugly mug. We had each other by the face, and were digging our nails into the other's skin, but all of a sudden, our heads were struck down as soon as we started. Stop it, both of you. You're making Idun cry. We turned around to see Idun's eyes getting moisty. Seeing her father and brother fighting is clearly unsettling for the young girl. Damn it! No, don't cry. Here, Nefertiti. Jonrad held his head, not knowing what to do, but I cunningly offered a dose of fluff. Still, she was going to cry. Your faces are confusing her. One of you must go and shave now. Hilda said. Shave. Right. Where? Jonrad started running around confused, causing me to roll his eyes backward. All right, I said as summoned lust. Right away. As soon as it fused with me, I manipulated my beard to disappear and my hair to grow shorter. Ta-da! With my face looking younger, Idun started to settle down. That was awesome. How did you do it? Jonrad was mystified by the miraculous technique. I just did so as the others. It is a technique anyone can learn. The only requirement is to be at least 1% as good-looking as me. I replied. Damn you, little shit! Jonrad ground his teeth, as this is ultimately my victory. My little sister seemed happy with the trick of making my hair grow longer and shorter. Such a thing is nothing. Guess I'll show her how to make a Daedric Titan dance on a ball. It was too nice to see my family again, but as I looked around, someone was not there. Someone I really needed to see. I could feel her getting closer in my heart, and as soon as she was close enough, I went towards her as well. The door to my house was opened and she walked in right away. No one stood in her way and cleared the way between us immediately. I finally see her again. I have a lot to tell her about. John. Nurina. She is here, coming at me with a smile, but she suddenly stopped. Her smile froze. Her eyes widened. I feared this would happen. I feared she would see my chaos. And then again, what really happened in chaos? Bonus. Dawn, gentlemen, is a chaos recollection. Reader A, you're a monster. Reader B, you know we don't like backflips in the narration. Don, Fofufu pushes glasses like anime as they glow. Oh, but here's where you are mistaken. Boys, you're up. John, next time on Dragonborn Saga. Wolfer, drum roll. John, we defy logic. Mirren, TSSS. John, and define nonsense. Mirren, TSSS. John, even Socrates will be there. Mirren, TSSS. John, and go through a mind hive experience. Mirren, TSSS. John, and if that is not enough for you, we will go into the most realistic fourth wall breaking experience ever. Wolf and Mirren, jazz music. John joins with a trumpet. Don, are you not entertained? Readers A, B, C. Z, starstruck, 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 starstruck. Chapter 520 Chaos 1. Blank Space. Quick warning. The following chapter may contain the deepest shit you're going to read in your life, also an incredible amount of nonsense. It is like deep nonsense if you catch my drift. My mental state and the chapter were affecting each other and I rewrote it almost 4 to 5 times with. It almost made me go crazy like yesterday, but I've finished off the monster. Just as I said, my mental state was not right while I was writing. Just read safely. Next chapter will make more sense, I promise. 1 year ago, after the battle with Manamarco. 2. Chaos as an element is the origin of all elements. Only through the comprehension of time did the chaos dissolve into the first forms of order. It is understandable that chaos and order always existed within each other, and it's also acceptable that they can be turned into one another as well. The story of Unveil, the spirit of Anu, creating Oriel, the spirit of time, is the official myth of creation is all about turning the chaos into order, which by its part led to the existence of the Orbis, the universe. Now let's go back way before that. Way before Unveil or Sithis, Oriel or Lorcan, right exactly at the simplest of all truths. Anu and Padme, the is and is not. It was said that this world is a dream that began by believing in oneself as value equals true, thus having a self and truly existing. Padme and Anu were incapable of comprehending such facts on their own, as they are just some colossal amounts of cosmic energies to our understanding. They needed to create Sithis and Unveil later on, but it seems that I have strayed from my point again. Let's go back in time a little more to when even Anu and Padme were not existing. Was it just a complete darkness? Eternal and passive? Or maybe it is just some blank white space like the one I am speaking to you from right now. You see, I believe that Anu and Padme had an origin, and that origin lies beyond the shackles of everything we know. The one single truth. The crux of creation enshrouded in mystery and enigma. You see, if my time here has taught me anything, it would be that everything must go back to an origin. Anu came from the breath of existence. Padme came from the waters of creation. How did I know that? Silly. I don't know that, I know nothing. I am just a madman after all. Whatever I say is pointless, but let me make a point here. I am crazy, well, you already know that. The answer to everything lies within letting go of the illusion that you know anything. Socrates once said true knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing. So hold my hands and be crazy with me. No homo, I swear. Oh. These are some soft hands you have. You moisturize? What? Antiseptics? Must be pretty though these days, huh? Okay, let's not hold hands then. Then be crazy with me from a safe distance. I know everyone is on edge these days about keeping healthy social distance. Heh. Mortals. So the first step to becoming crazy is, yes, you guessed right. No step at all. There are no guidelines or rules in the zone we're about to step into. Actually, it will get a bit hardcore from now on, so in advance. Just take a deep breath and sway with the music. Socrates said the greatest blessing granted to mankind comes by a way of madness, which is a divine gift. How I love this guy! He also said I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. This time, I won't tell you something you should just accept from me. So please, think without limitations. Let's talk about the mix of chaos and order we call existence and raise a few questions. Can it be that existence in totality was developed from nothing? Can it be that it wasn't something that always existed or developed by an accidental coincidence? Is everything in existence eternal old, or did it have a beginning? Confusing, right? I'm not talking about the elven myth of creation or the Big Bang Theory or any of that. As I said before, we are going way back in time. There has to be a limit, right? A limit to how much we can go back in time. A limit to how much existence existed. Doesn't this mean that at some point, this whole thing of endless numbers of stars and galaxies was created? Chaos and order, existence and non-existence, everything and nothing. Was it all made in perfect balance and design, or did it just come with a bang? Crazy question, right? If that's right, then we are going on the right track. Still, some people would come and say, come on. Do you even have a proof for this nonsense you just said? I would say yes, yes indeed. A madman doesn't simply need any proof, but I'll play your game, sane people. You are the proof. You. Look at you. You are perfectly and beautifully made and planned. I know your parents take most of the credit for how good-looking you are, and when you were born, yet all of that applies to everyone. But you must remember, we are looking at the much bigger picture, remember? Let's just let go of the universe and existence and all these complicated thoughts. Let's be normal mad people and get to our mortal level, the human. Every human is evidence of the perfect blueprint. It starts with a mere sperm that evolves into a leaching clot of congealed blood, then to a chew-like lump, called the fetus, then into bones and flesh and bam, the super sexy you. This transformation between imperfection to perfection in a very systematic and flawless way that even with the best stars aligned, it can't be accidentally sequenced. And then you start magically moving around. From the first baby steps to the widest strides of youth to the weakness of old age, perfection becomes imperfection, and no matter what, there is nothing that you can do to reverse the process. Even delaying it requires practice and cultivation. The more we know, the clearer things get. We look everywhere and see everything just moving perfectly. The world is not glitching or overloaded with details or sends out bug messages. The Elder Scrolls aside, okay? Apart from that, day comes out and night comes after, and not a single thing out of order. Either way, the concept of every act has an actor is a great concept that is proven by observation. We think of what we observed and come up with ideas like seeing and believing. If you don't want to see or believe, and rather stick to whatever order you were told, then please, leave a madman like me to his madness and carry on. For the rest of you who stayed, if there is any, let's take one more dive together. The last one, I swear. Existence as a package is too complex. It is known that the human brain is also complex, but the situation we are in here is a little too overwhelming, okay? I'll be honest, it's a mess, big time. To revert the existence to its most primal element, aka chaos, this needs an act of an equal amount of complexity. Let's agree that no matter how advanced the technology went, it is still a little bit too far from that level of complexity. I mean, the neighboring planets are as far as technology has reached anyway. But at the end of the day, existence has all that it needs for a new tomorrow. It is not as if there is some primal apocalyptic entity that is about to jump and devour us all to oblivion. Okay, I'll take that one back. But with every one of those disasters comes a solution, whether that is a hero or a cure, or a hero with a cure, love that last one. To sum all this madness up, everything exists on an accurate plan. Take the gravitational constant, for example. It is an empirical physical constant involved in the calculation of gravitational effects in Newton's law of universal gravitation and in Einstein's general theory of relativity. Its numerical value is 6. 674 times 10 to the power of negative 11 m cubed kg caret dash 1 s to the power of negative 2. Any slight change in that value will flip the world upside down. That number is responsible for the centrifugal force, for the continuation of the planet in its orbit, and how far away from or close to the Sun, so you can imagine. It is up to you whether you agree or disagree with a madman like me, but is all that a coincidence? I'll be an open-minded person and leave you to your opinion. Then again, this raises a very pivotal question. What is madness? What is crazy? Whoops. Those are two questions, or are they? What gives you the sole realization of comprehending numbers? 1 plus 1 equals 2? Why is that a thing? In the place where I am in at the moment, all can equal 0, which by its part may or may not equal anything. Possibilities become endless where the mind has enough power to perceive and analyze. What is related to madness in any of this? Nothing and everything. When you are mad, anything is possible. You don't only think outside the box, you eliminate the box. You have no limits. You become from sane to insane and from insane to sane once again. In my case, repeating the process a few times made me understand that both sanity and insanity are two sides of the same coin. It made me open my eyes and just smile as I saw light. Don't worry, that's not the one at the end of the tunnel. That's actually the light of hope becoming a literal light thing. It lit the world around me and kept me in a state I have never experienced before. I was there standing in that same endless white space that was in my mind. What's on my mind became a reality, which is not a thing that happens any day. The experience is incredible and I feel limitless, yet the only limit I have is time. I know you may be wondering what in the absolute fuck was that all about, and to answer all that, I just don't understand it well myself. I am the guy who was trapped in chaos, but I am also the guy who got himself out to this weird blank space. You know, when the things happening inside your head happen in front of your eyes, you are in a full state of control and wonder. I can just create endless clones of myself and hold conversations together, but everything is pointless at the moment. I must figure out a way before I become out of time and lose myself. 1. Was the chaos enough to trap John Dare? No, it wasn't. The place around him had the same white image he had in his mind. This phenomenon only happens with what is known as the Godhead. The thoughts of his head control everything. If he let his thoughts wander around, he can end up creating a universe or something. He must be careful in this place, in the blank space. Many people come to this place, and even more people come following their trail. It is the most common event in history for people to exist here. It is the blank space after all. Okay, I get it. It is the blank space, thank you. Will you please shut up so I can think? That was John shouting. They know. Just to clarify. Fair point, okay, keep narrating, but don't make me feel interrupted. Piece of cake. John was trying to focus and, with a slight push, he was in total focus at the moment. Everything becomes clearer and the bigger picture unfolds slowly, as if a large number of domino pieces falling one after another in an artistic manner. That was great, said John, referring to the large number of pieces of domino that he imagined falling one after another in an artistic manner. Yes, I had the euphoria of thoughts that felt totally awesome. Can we do that again? Tick-tock. A large clock appears as the narrator indicated the tightness of time, trying to warn John from the seriousness of his situation. Hold on. Did I just narrate? It would seem that John found himself in a rather strange situation. He looked pale for a second as he finally started to take the situation very seriously. Can you at least help? John asked the air. The fuck? You are bailing out on me now? Alright, I'll throw you a bone. How about a riddle? Okay. I have a blank space, I have limitless imagination, I have full authority, but I don't have enough time. What am I? Easy, that's me. Wait. John raised his hands as he realized the complexity of the question and finally understood the answer. It's you. I know. I know where I am. I finally understand. You are a really tricky one, aren't you? I understand now. It was all pieced out, yet I was stupid. I am out. Ha ha. I am out. Outside. This is weird, but it is getting weirder, yet it somehow makes sense, and makes no sense at all. It is so stupid yet clever, well, from my perspective at least. I am outside. Outside what? Outside the text, out of context, lost in the translation, away from keyboard. I am in a blank space. The black chaos I was in was the darkness of the ink. The white blank is the whiteness of the paper. Right now I am way ahead of my story. It is still chaos, you see. Chaos is the extreme sides on both edges. A black sea of ideas you can never see through, or a white blank space you only hear the echo of your thoughts in. Who did you think I was talking to? A third person? How? I am the only person here. What a twist. This chaos is playing tricks on me. Even time, it is not right. 2, 1, 3. Be careful. 3. I didn't lose myself. But it got worse than I imagined. You look handsome. You look handsome too. I am John, by the way. Pleasure. I am John too. Fantastic. Double trouble. Excuse me, you two are John, right? Oh look, it is a third John. 3 of us? That's a triple threat, baby. Guys, calm down. The 4 of us getting too excited about the number is just idiotic. By the way, it's a wholesome foursome now. This is so cool. 4 of us. That's more than a single book can handle. Indeed. But we must be careful, there is something not right about our number. John Dare is supposed to be one John Dare. 4 of us is simply asking for trouble. I couldn't agree more, handsome version of me. The 4 John Dares looked at each other and thought. Actually, their thoughts were shared and synced all time, but it would be a killjoy if they didn't speak them out loud. So, let's put some rules. We are all equal, so there is no reason to go full sicko on each other. Let's just randomly pick a number. I got 1. 1. I got 2. 2. I got 3. 3. I got 4. 4. That's incredible. Now, why are there 4 of us? 1. It is mostly because of the chaos. Each time we fall into a situation, we start having a very troubling experience. The first experience, blank whiteness, the second experience was an existential crisis, and the third experience is a multiple character disorder. 2. Damn. That's one hell of a situation we got ourselves into. 3. This is to be expected. After all, we are in a place that doesn't make sense. Thankfully, we are now having some control. We need to figure out a plan. 4. Bang our way out of chaos. 2. With a style. And a flip once we land. 1. Sounds like a solid plan, gentlemen, but I'm afraid we'll need more. 3. More jaunts. 4. God forbids. 3. Okay, jokes aside. Who here would want to share the plan we all have in our mind right now? 1. Okay, I'll go. So as everyone knows, we passed 2 phases now. Turning the chaos into order required us to organize time, then get our thoughts together. This time we are in a situation with our reality. 2. That's one hell of a situation, guys. 4. Well, at least with the 4 of us going hive mind or mind hive, which one is this? 1. That's strange, I agree. We are in the same person's head, but we are also sharing the same head. God, that's too confusing. 3. Either way, reality is very unorganized right at the moment. 1. For that is why this space is like this. Blank and white. We are outside the text of our story. 3. Off text. That's like we are novel characters on a blank page. I see the irony. 2. So, in order to fix this, we need to write ourselves in the story. 4. We now have the power over this white space. We can rewrite it. 1. No, we need to write back. 2. Write back. That's a good term. This means we need everything we had right at the moment we fell into the chaos. 4. And exactly in details about how we were at the time. But we are missing one great detail. 3. Once we set it all back, we will return back to the chaos once again, and all these events will repeat themselves unless 2. Unless we know what we are up against. 1. For all that we know, we were dragged into the chaos by some being, and it may be his. Either way, some being used our plan to send Manamarco to the void and opened up a loophole so we get devoured as well. 3. Remember, our fate is only restrained to our universe, outside of it. We are weaker and we don't possess neither magic nor any sort of leverage. 4. If anyone has this sort of power, it should be a higher existence from a less stable world. 3. What we know about the stable worlds is that they have more reality than ours, thus they possess no powers or magic. Earth, for example. 1. So our enemy may be that thing Shadow once talked about, the danger threatening Earth. 2. There is a fair chance. Still, we don't know much and can't point fingers. Let's start our work now, shall we? 4. The situation was much more understandable than before. The Jaunts managed to get themselves a destination and a threat to be wary of. With the work laid out, the 4 started working on recreating themselves on a well-detailed scale. Chaos dissolves things. If the outer space is a vacuum to air, then chaos is a vacuum to time. John survived, but he needs to regain the time he lost. It was part of the reason he split in 4. Just like Oriel, Akatosh, Alkosh and Alduin. To exist, he needed his 4 aspects that maintain this spacetime he is in. As a 4-dimensional manifold, 3 Jaunts keep the space while 1 maintains time. With this knowledge, the 4 of them started recreating their own new aspect by mantling one another. They first needed to write back everything about themselves. The first was Nefertiti, their fluffiest friend in the whole wide world. Once she finally regained being, she experienced a 4-way patting from the fluff-hungry Jaunts. What came after that were definitely the sin artifacts. Greed had taken enough damage from the chaos and the Jaunts had to 3D print it from memory. Pride was hard to pull, lust was unstable and wrath was inactive. It didn't end here, as the cube was recreated too, with every piece of inventory stored in it. This process required John almost 2 mental years to put all that stuff together. John was left with 2 things he didn't recreate yet. One of them kept slipping out of his mind, and the other was just something he seemed to have forgotten. Why would a thing keep slipping out of our mind? 3. Interesting question. I have a theory. 1. Entertain us? 2. I think the thing that keeps slipping was protected by a disregarding spell, like the one from that time we snuck to High Hrothgar. 1. Someone planted an item on us and protected it from others noticing it. May sound like one person to me. 4. Nurina. 1. She's the only one who knows how to pull that one out as far as we know. 2. Still, that is strange. We are not fully John, so we can't remember such a thing, but if there is someone who can, 2. The 4 Jaunts turned around. Lady of Naps? 1. Mistress of Grace. 2. Queen of Fluff. 3. Her Meowjesty. 4. The 4 of them were embarrassingly posing around the napping Nefertiti, who opened her eyes knowing that her troublesome humans are up to no good. Humans. Fluff off. Yes, but we are trying to remember something only you can remember. 1. Fine, humans. Be quick. An item belonged to Nurina. She must have planted on John for a long time, and he must have never parted with it. 2. It may be big or small, but at least cherished as a memento. 3. And must have been there almost all the time. 4. The 4 Jaunts described to her something that she can never mess. Something she is 100% familiar with ever since John adopted her. How could these four idiots forget about it? The thought made her take a human form and look at them strangely. You cat to be kitten me. There was one item that fit the description rather very well. Nerina's enchanted golden ring, of course. The golden ring. The four Johns could now recollect what was slipping off their minds and became pale. How could they ever forget about the most important thing John cherished more than anything? The ring was given to John way before he left Riften for the first time. Nerina gave it to him around the time she started teaching him. The ring was simply too good for its incredible magica regeneration ability, but more to that, John could never see through that ring. Yet the details, the texture, the carvings, he can never forget those. The ring was there almost everywhere he went. The adventures, the battles, the heists, even at his wedding he was wearing it. Also, when he was trapped in the Briarheart tree, he lost some fingers, but he had the finger which had that ring intact. Homins! And no one ever tried to loot it from him. Homins! This is strange. It is not just gold, it is also enchanted and… Homins! There was that strange thing, he never took that ring off either. Homin! Nefertiti jumped off her place and hugged John. He never noticed, but all of a sudden, he was being put back together, John after John. He returned as one. How on? He wanted to hold Nefertiti's shoulder, but as soon as his eyes landed on his hand, he saw something that spooked him. The ring was there, back on its own. He didn't need to write it back, but it returned and with a glow on top of it. Homin, your ring is glowing. Yeah, I can see. Just what absurdity did Nerina plant on him for all these years? This thing that put me back together. I had a plan to do so, but it would take time. Why would it? Time? John had an absurd idea. Time? Is this ring powered by time? John never had the chance to see such a thing. Something that consumes time was on his hand for years. It must have, some sort of recorded him. A recorder of a sort. Nothing would pull a being back together to a perfect full state unless it is getting a record of him. Backup and recovery if he wanted to put it in an accurate manner. Nerina was incredible at everything, and no matter how much more John learns, he finds himself understanding how an incredible mage his adoptive mother is. If John had the power of an immortal combined with that ring, Nerina, you've got to be kidding me. If this hand landed in the hands of a higher existence, it can be used to travel back in time. Such a thing was completely out of John's league. Even if he could utter the words, he can't imagine the magic itself. If Nerina had created an item to go back in time, she must have made it to return back and save her family during the destruction of the city of Vivek. That was Nerina's regret, her family. But she now has the means to return back in time. Even if it creates a dragon break and destroys 200 years' worth of world history, John knew that Nerina was a selfish person regarding the one she loved. Why hasn't she done it? Why put it around his fingers? That is a question only she can answer. John dejectedly accepted that and kissed the ring. I guess we just need to get done with our business here, right? John said. Nefertiti let go of him and asked, what do we need? When we entered the chaos, we had someone else with us. We need him around, John said. Nefertiti frowned immediately. That evil elf dog person mage? She said, meaning Mannimarco. Quite accurate, your fluffness, but not quite right, John said. He moved back to the table planted on the blank white space, and pulled out a quill and a paper. The one who entered with us was indeed Mannimarco, but we don't need him. In the chaos, souls are irrelevant. What we need is that guy. John started writing for some time before witnessing the manifestation of another individual. Nefertiti hid behind John as she felt uncomfortable with that person being around. On the other hand, that person opened his eyes and looked around with an expression as blank as the space they are in. John stood in front of him, the last piece of getting back to the text of the story. Maybe the one character who wasn't given the chance to play a fair role or have the right ending. Hello, my name is John, you can call me Krylon. I am friends with Isha. John offered a handshake. You must be Zane. Chapter 521 Chaos 2 The Adventures of Bitch and Dumbass. So after the last messy chapter, I wanted to end the chaos recollection at this chapter, but I underestimated myself. Still, I can promise you that this chapter is way easier to digest than 520, and chapter 522 will be a gigantic 5K words chapter, so look forward to it, where we end the chaos with a bang. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Shut up, Human. In the chaos, John and Zane, John and Zane, John and Zane. In the chaos, John and Zane, my fair lady. Stop it. Lookin' for an exit from this place, from this place, from this place. Lookin' for an exit from this place, my fair lady. I said. Ouch, 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 fine. As John moved Nefertiti away from his face, she looked at him with annoyed eyes. Unlike him, she wasn't having a fun trip at all. First, she is out of her habitat. There are no shadows where there is no time. Even though John had successfully managed to sustain himself and her with time to not dissolve in the chaos, there is no way for her to just enter the shadow dimension and nap in peace. John put her on his shoulder again, and she snuggled after some time on her own. So, my good guide, how far is that place you sensed? John asked the man walking not far from him. Not far. Not close. Nowhere. We walk until we find it. Zane replied. That's what you have been saying for a week now. It wasn't a week, or maybe it was. I already know. You are under my temporal effect, but your perception resonates with the nature of chaos. That's why you are my compass. Zane, or what remained of him, is currently John's guide in the chaos. His body carries a curse that originated from Sithis, who also originated from chaos. The curse allows the body of Zane to possess two different natures that are completely opposite, vampirism and lycanthropy. Either way, this curse allowed Zane to be a part of chaos. I don't like him, Nefertiti said as she looked at Zane from the back. It is natural. You are a being of nature whose spiritual part is more dominant. He is completely the opposite. John replied. What do you mean? Nefertiti asked. How to put it? Do you know what a soul is? Obviously. Its essence. That's right. He doesn't have that, a soul. In chaos, soul is just like time, it dissolves. Now, he is just a mind powering a body that can exist here. John said. Like machine. Exactly. You are so smart. He is a machine. Machines can have intelligence but not souls. Soul is the privilege of the living. It is the only thing that, despite being non-material and completely untouchable, humanity always knew of its existence. It is the thing that gives people emotions and provides them with life. It is the core and the essence of the living. Zane lacked that. He died a long time ago and his soul went to the dream sleeve, a general term for the afterlife in ES universe. This body is just his brain reacting to information recorded into it. Of course a body needs life to extract information from a brain, but Zane's body is the perfect undead being. It can work in mysterious ways once the limits are removed. All this and that aside, there is one important question at the moment. What is this situation? To sum it up, John rewrote Zane, or rather called him back, to escape the prison of chaos. He had to go through 3 important steps which were balancing his existence, creating a time, and remaking himself into a reality. With Zane as an important part, John could get rid of him after managing to escape the blank space, but he had another use for him. In chaos there are bubbles of reality, places where time exists. In truth, chaos doesn't completely dissolve time, as time is its weakness, thus it gathers time in places where it can be contained. It is exactly like the density of liquids. Oil won't mix with water, so water pushes oil up, because it is lesser in density. Time and chaos are the same thing. These bubbles of time contain mini-worlds which are very unstable and always shifting. To make things worse, these places do not have a fixed location and do not stay in one for long. To find one, it purely depends on luck. That's why when John asked Zane to find one, Zane suggested walking in a straight line until one appears. That aside, the place they walked in was the very definition of chaos. To make it clear, it was a sea of darkness. This sea doesn't have a fixed surface, but it was a maze of tunnels talking every possible direction and always changing. Tunnels normally would have walls and a ceiling, which were also part of that sea. The place was completely insane. John must avoid the motions of chaos as if he fell back to the sea. He'll have to go through it all over again. This made the fact of walking on a straight line to be a challenge. Still, what is the theory about walking in a straight line? Simple, a straight line is the perfect form of order. The only way to defy chaos and find a time bubble is to follow this methodology. We're still not there yet. Close and far. Please God. We found it. Thanks God. Appreciate it. It was a momentary appearance for a sphere floating through the waters of chaos. It was white unlike any black, and through it, one would be able to see the strange motions of chaos settling quieter. Hold on tight. John held Nefertiti on closer and grabbed Zane before coming into contact with that white sphere. The situation shifted and the scene changed. Nothing felt quite the same where John was now. Unlike the sea of chaos, this place was dry, maybe too dry. It was a desert land and a dark sky with a misty atmosphere, and that's it. The desert was a bit flat and there was no wind whatsoever. This place is rather ominous. But now what? John turned around to look at Zane only to see. TSK. I forgot this would happen. Zane has collapsed like a dead body, which is what he actually is. Nefertiti jumped off John's shoulder and tried to revive Zane with a few strikes of her paws, but it seemed impossible. That's understandable. Unlike the outside, this place has a flow of time and Zane is dead, as far as time is concerned. Nefertiti didn't seem to care, but as she moved back to John, she noticed something under her. Human shadows. The thing she missed the most was back. Of course shadows exist where time does, and for that, Nefertiti sunk in her own shadow in an instant. Like that, she came out again and looked at John. Homan, how long did I take? She asked. Almost a minute, John replied. It was just a few seconds over there, she said. It seemed that even with the existence of time, things were not that stable, and the flow of time between reality and shadows is also affected. Something else, she added. What's up? There is a shadow, a person, that direction, an hour walking. Strange things kept happening in this time bubble. Aside from the whole problem about everything might suddenly revert back into chaos once again, there were more things to make a tough guy like John run for his damn life, like the world is coming to end. A thunderstorm, easy. A snowstorm, everyday thing. A firestorm, been there. An ash storm, don't mind it. A brainstorm, done that. But a fucking time storm? Why the fuck is that even a thing? A time storm, or to be more specific, a whole bunch of time cyclones started raging around once John went into the direction Nefertiti pointed at. These time cyclones were a whole new animal compared to what imagination can spare. Just like how storms tear everything apart, time cyclones were tearing reality itself apart. John didn't only have to worry about his current present action, but also his past and future actions. There is no magicka to use in this reality, but it felt abundant with energy. Sadly, if John tried to exploit this energy, the whole time bubble will be torn apart completely. And if that's the only thing John had to worry about, then things might have been easier, but for some reason, there were multiple bolts of purple lightning chasing him wherever he went. Right now, he only had his physical ability to face all that. Nefertiti refrained from manipulating the shadows for the same reason as John, while the other deadly sin artifacts were useless in this place. Actually, not all were useless. Greed could be used, but if it takes damage, it won't be regenerated easily as it needs magicka as well. If greed was destroyed in this place, then it will be completely lost. Homan incoming. Nefertiti gave John a warning, and he too felt a terrible threat coming from behind him. Hide in my clothes, John replied, as he can't protect her and himself at the same time. He can no longer hold back and unleashed his devouring shadow ether, greed. The dark matter spread around as if it was losing control because of the differences in space, but as soon as John could control it, he covered himself completely with it head to toe, taking a hooded cloak form. His appearance became like one of those ghost monsters that lurk in large cloaks. With greed on, his reflexes told him to dodge the incoming bolt of lightning and counterattack whoever sent it. Right now, it was only him and another person in this time bubble, and that person was coming at John with all their might. In a charging move, a figure covered in gray robes holding a black battle staff struck down at John from behind with purple lightning covering the staff. Dark magic! John could recognize the nature of the magic that seemed to have originated from this time bubble dimension. As soon as that gray person's attack missed, the land started to shoot stalagmites at John in the most strange of ways. John never saw any earth magic before, but if a man can't trust the land he stands on, then the fight ought to be hairy. Dodge, dodge, sidekick. John's pure physical ability proved supreme. His body covered in the lucid greed made him look like a ghost, and he even used dirty tactics and smart moves to outmaneuver his attacker. Swoosh, swoosh, zap. The two exchanged high-speed attacks that were as fast as lightning, and the last moves gave John the edge in close quarters. Seeing his attacker heavily using magic, it meant that he is fighting a mage who is not experienced in heavy combat. From the skill, moves, and control, this ought to be a battlemage using the staff in both close and long ranges. Brilliant! The exchanges between them were flawless. It is as if the two were meant to fight one another on equal terms with the same amount of skills. The two had a very similar awareness and sense to combat despite the two different styles. John was pushing forward to limit his attacker's long-range ability, and the attacker was leaving traps every step they took back to limit John's unstoppable momentum. Still, with John's advantage of momentum came the attacker's advantage of the terrain. The attackers waited for the slightest mistake John took to exchange a hit for a hit, receiving an explosive punch in the abdomen for a strike towards John's head. John's strike sent the attacker back violently, while the attacker's strike made John slow down and lose a bit of balance. It may seem that John received less damage, but with the attacker showing a hint of anticipation, John tried to move from his place as he thought a trap would come at him from the earth, but that wasn't the case at all. From around John, and all of a sudden, a time storm formed. John could see the attackers grinning with a nasty smile, then raising the middle finger to him. It was then when John was enveloped by the time storm. And all of a sudden, he was out. What happened? Well, that was John ripping apart the time storm with his bare hands, disregarding the injuries he was sustaining. He wasn't the one who would receive a middle finger sign as he falls down. He is the one who returns it double, no triple. The attacker saw John, and despite John not seeing the attacker's face, he could tell the huge shock the other party was in. John returned a middle finger sign by his left, then a middle finger sign by his right, then joined his hand together and made a triple middle finger sign, the peak-level middle finger technique. His opponent was defeated both mentally and physically. Motherfucker! The attacker finally spoke, but the language was Elven. An elf? And a girl, quite young. John seemed surprised. You can speak, monster? The elf girl was surprised as much as he was. What part of me looks like a monster, you crazy bitch? John was offended. Everything, dumbass, she said, pointing at him up and down. John took a good look at himself, seeing that he's all enveloped in greed. He sure looked like a monster. That's just for my protection, damn it. And didn't you attack me when I was just minding my own business? I was attacking the dumbass who invaded the time bubble, she said. Fucking bitch. John held his head from frustration. The two were overwhelmingly pissed at each other, but John finally tried to be the mature one. Alright. I'm just here to look for a way out. I'm not disturbing your crazy bitch. While John was speaking, the girl launched a sneak attack at him that he managed to cleanly avoid. There seemed to be no point in maturity anymore. He ran toward her and she ran from him while throwing attacks at one another. Get out of here, dumbass. I'll catch you, crazy bitch. As the two didn't need an introduction, they fairly got along as dumbass and crazy bitch. After a few hours of chase, John and the elf girl were completely exhausted. He sustained a lot of injuries from the time storm and she was drained. That fucking hurts. Stop cursing, asshole. I mean dumbass, sorry. No problem. Wait. TSK. Crazy bitch. With even round 2 ending with a deadlock draw, the two finally got the chance to talk. Keep your distance. Nah. So you can use magic from afar. Not gonna happen. I'm not using shit, fuck off. Just wait until I find a way to exploit the energy of the bubble into magic. I'll teach you a lesson. Huh? A muscle brain like you? Please. She was about to undermine or doubt his ability regarding magic, even though she never witnessed him use any, but now that she thinks of it, the monster-like man ripped apart a time storm. You dumbass, how did you survive the temporal storm? She asked. Temporal storm? That's a fancy name. Well, that was actually easy but a little bit consuming and takes a toll. These storms are probably caused by this place being attacked by chaos, so I... Wait. She interrupted him. The chaos is indeed attacking the place, but you can't figure out why. Her question raised a strange point. It felt like she was ridiculing him, but he ignored that. Maybe there are different elements in this time bubble, causing it to be more unstable than usual. John gave his best guess. Duh. The girl replied, as it is obvious, that's you. Facing fingers again, John became royally annoyed. Me? I did nothing. You're truly a dumbass. People don't have the same sense of time. We are the only minds in this mini-world called the time bubble. Our logics apply on it, and for that, our perceptions of time are contradicting with one another. Time started collapsing the moment you entered here, she said. John was taken aback by the girl's profound analysis that made perfect sense to him. That's why you wanted to get rid of me, crazy bitch? Come on, not fair. Mind and logic are essential to stabilize the safe zones in the chaos. You at least should know this before you enter the spring of Sithis, she said. The what of whom? I never entered any spring, John said. The silence following the discussion was deep and shocking. John learned of the existence of something he never knew about, and the girl was completely unaware that someone can access the chaos from a place different than the spring. Who the fuck are you? The two asked the question almost at the same time, but were completely freaked out by one another. Okay, give me a moment to think. She held her hand up and sank in deep thoughts, then spoke to him once again. You didn't complete how you survived the temporal storm. John also cut his thoughts and answered. The storm was clearly caused by chaos, so it must be affected by the same principle of the motions of the PSJJJJ, John said. You're talking about the Psijic endeavor, manipulating the time in a chaotic manner to access a higher power. She continued for him, that's genius, dumbass. Of course, I wrote a book about the matter, John bragged. I see, so it is true you are an experienced mage, the girl concluded. That said, Tell me about this spring of Sidhis of yours. John was very interested in that spring thing. The girl seemed troubled, so she diverted the subject. Tell me how you ended up here first. I've been answering a lot of your questions, bitch. Let's make it on turns. John suggested. TSK. Dumbass bastard. She wasn't taking his persistence well, but she eventually complied. The spring of Sidhis is sacred to us, the cult of Sidhis. She only said those words and John jumped away like a scaredy cat. Now this guy can fuck with Daedric princes as much as wants, but Sidhis, that's a whole different animal. Guys called the Dreadfather for crying out loud. The cult of Sidhis is not just the most ancient cult on Tamriel, but also the most powerful. It is basically an apocalyptic cult that would murder anything in the name of Sidhis, or so the public misconception went. John himself wasn't very knowledgeable about the cult other than its most famous branch, the Dark Brotherhood. You seem awfully reactive. I guess it wasn't your intention to enter this place at all, the girl said. You bet your ass I didn't. Why would anyone want to be here? John shouted. Relax. I mean no harm. I may be a member of the cult, but I am not a worshipper of Sidhis, she said. John eyed her from distance before getting closer again. I don't understand how that works, but as an elf, you shouldn't be interested in this kind of worship, John said. What are you, dumbass? She asked. A Nord. Well, isn't this surprising? A human and an elf, who clearly do not worship Sidhis, meeting in this chaotic place. Being the bitch you are, I am not surprised you do all matters of crazy shit. Either way, let's get to what matters. You know a way out? John asked. If going out is your goal, then I am in no way to help you, she said. Well, isn't this just fantastic? What is your purpose here then? He asked. That's my turn to ask, dumbass. How did you get in the chaos and arrive at this time bubble? She asked. All right. I fought a very strong opponent who had an indestructible body. This body was formed by the elements of chaos and change. It combined between lycanthropy and vampirism through a curse called hate, John said. That's disturbing. Keep on. Well, as the body was already of a dead man whose soul was claimed by a Daedra, the body was possessed by that enemy of mine who is actually someone immortal. Heard of Manamarco? Shut up. True. To cast the immortal Manamarco out of his indestructible vessel, I had to create a very complicated aspect regarding Sidhis. The whole point was if you could use the power of Sidhis for anything, you must pay something in return that would take the interest of Sidhis. As Sidhis hungers for change, he took back the indestructible vessel and Manamarco's incarnation with it, but you didn't realize that the same aspect would also apply to you for calling upon Sidhis. Let's say I was drunk in victory. What a dumbass! Seemed like the two of them had an airhead nature that got on the nerve of the other. Simply saying, the two were geniuses of an equal standing, yet John is stupidly capable and she is immensely knowledgeable. Okay, my turn, John said and started thinking of a good question. Say, if there is a way to escape this place and return to Nirn, what would it be? John's question was cunning, but the elf girl didn't seem to be minding to answer him. That's not a simple question, but if you want my guess, then you must think logically. What is the most important thing in the chaos? She asked. Time. Of course. The only way to navigate through the chaos is to have time. A piece of time, I mean. I guess you already possess one, else you won't be here, right? She said. John became serious as she mentioned that. He unintentionally touched his hand to feel Nurina's gold ring on him. As he was covered in greed, the girl didn't see what's on John, but he then looked at her asking, What's yours? John could feel her grinning as soon as he asked. She moved the side of her robe and showed and retreated away instantly. I possess an unlimited supply of time, dumbass. You may exhaust me, but still, this time bubble is my rest stop. Go find yours. The elf girl was treacherous indeed. She wouldn't reveal her card unless she is absolutely sure she would win. John could see her trump card and his surprise was of absolute shock. An Elder Scroll. That was it, an unlimited supply of time. That's why the girl was able to use magic. Just like Nurina's ring, the Elder Scrolls were the ultimate records recording events from the past, present, and future. That is the source of the girl's power. Still, John had the perfect reverse card in his sleeve, and without further ado, he pulled out his Elder Scroll. Motherfucker! To your face, bitch! He possessed an Elder Scroll, she possessed another Elder Scroll. If the two of them clashed at the moment, too much time pressure would be created and the time bubble would be destroyed. None of them wanted that. Fuck. She pulled back first. Feels good, isn't it? He said. Fucking dumbass. Stupid bitch. As the truce was signed, the two returned to peace talks once again. Seriously, how old are you? Revealing your card as you are winning like a stupid villain. He said. Shut up. You can't ask a lady about her age. You elves aren't sensitive about age, cut the act. Quit annoying me. So, an elf with an Elder Scroll. You must have a lot of resources back on Tamriel. Let me guess, you're from the Aldmeri Dominion? John asked. The elf girl looked at him with utter silence, and the space around them seemed shifting. What's wrong? John asking. Damn it, you had to run your mouth, hadn't you? She shouted at him. John understood that she was serious and gave her a minute to gather her thoughts together. I never have imagined it, but how ancient are you? She asked. Ancient? John was taken by the word. Menimarco, the Aldmeri Dominion. These words weren't uttered together for a very long time, dumbass. What do you mean? It seems you and I are from two different eras. You may be 1,000 years before my time. Chapter 522 Chaos 3 Into the Abyss. This is one big-ass chapter for you all to stay at home. Don't get any funny ideas about going out, alright? It is also the last chapter in the Chaos, and where I just dump all the information on your big brains, so good luck, I guess. Big thanks to our new patron at Kyle Hitchens. How ancient are you? Menimarco and the Aldmeri Dominion? These words weren't uttered together for a very long time. You and I are from two different eras. The words were still ringing in John's mind and casting 1,000 echoes. To meet a person from the future? That was very unimaginable. How does the... Stop. As he was about to ask her about something, she signaled for him to stop talking. What? Don't ask. How did you? Anyone would ask about the future if they met someone from there, dumbass. Let's make it a rule and avoid speaking of our timelines. You understand the butterfly effect, right? If you know of the future, you would certainly take action based on your knowledge at some point in time, and my timeline would be altered. A dragon break may occur. She said. Heh. Knowing the future and messing it is what got my ass here in the first place. I don't want to know anymore. John bailed out right away. He can, of course, remember what his actions based on the game's knowledge caused. His labors are a result of him mindlessly corrupting Azura's star without thinking of the consequences. Either way, John and the elf girl started to strategize. Still, they were not trusting one another by the slightest. She didn't reveal her face and he didn't get greed off him. It was for the better as they agreed to keep it this way. Exchanging information between two timelines can have catastrophic effects indeed. John also made sure that Nefertiti would keep an eye on the elf girl. Nefertiti was hiding under greed, so she is completely undetectable. She also has a strong perception and a weak presence which makes her ideal in case the elf girl tries to backstab him. So, let's be frank about our goals. I want to get out of this place, John said. I share your feelings, but I intend to go deeper, the elf girl said. Deeper? You serious? I am serious. My quest lies in the heart of chaos. John looked at her, showing a troubled reaction. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to go out. I don't think I am even going that direction. John backed down. On the contrary, the heart of chaos is a place where time and space are very stable. Bitch, how can a place called the heart of chaos be a place of stable time and space? If I know better, this place should rip us apart with shit like those time storms. John concluded. Not really, but it should be as deadly, yet the danger is only a shell protecting what's behind. The heart of chaos is impossible to find unless we find the central sea. I know the name sounds stupid, but that place is important. It serves as a sealing ground employed by a higher power to contain something very evil. And we're just going there. That evil is my goal. It possesses so much power that it would give the Daedric princes combined a run for their money. After all, it is the very same being Sithis was made into its image, or that's how the story goes. John was confused. Actually, that girl had too much information about things he never knew existed, and all that information was very dangerous and very unholy. So there is an evil imprisoned in chaos. And you need to draw power from it to do something that is clearly not good. And that evil has the way out of this mess. Yes. You crazy? Why would I let you possess such evil and unstudied power? I am down for necromancy and dark magic as long as there are ethics, but if you speak of true evil like true fucking evil shit, why would that he even a thing you want? John's question seemed natural. Evil is evil. John would make pacts with Daedra as long as the terms are not too much, but pure evil is just wrong. On the other hand, the elf girl nodded in understanding. You are an upright person, I'll give you that despite your shady looks, but while I also believe in pure evil, I think the term evil is misunderstood by the general public and even you. Negative and positive exist in everything with many gray borders between them. Evil and good are just values. Evil is what is different, what is changing, what is chaotic. That's why most people see Sithis as evil while the being itself has no values like ours, it seeks only simple change. We need change. I don't know how things are going in your time, but we need change, revolution, heroes. When things are darker, positivity and stasis are not good, I came here for change. Her words seemed to be thought into, and John had a very strange feeling about her. She is right, but more to that, she is very similar to him. He could feel it, but he couldn't point it out. But if you believe in the pure negative evil, why do you seek it? John asked. Because it is sealed. If I can obtain power from it, the exchange won't be that bad, unlike some dumbass who directly made a deal with Sithis himself. True. John nodded, but his head was in shambles. Can I ask you something? John then spoke. As long as it is not related to the future, the girl replied. It is not. I was just wondering, how can someone make a proper deal with Sithis considering that you are a member of his cult? John said. Interesting question. First of all, you must know that Sithis has a funny way of valuing things. Actually, if that thing has too much impact on the future, it would be cheap, but if you were trying to save something by stopping the change, the price would be hefty. Her answer was music to John's ears. He held his head from the realization. So that's why, oh my God. It is very clear now. Sithis seeks change. Pure change that doesn't understand good from evil. To people who stand on both sides of good and evil, Sithis is the scourge that flips the tables, making him equally shunned by the two. Yet here where it kicks John in the head. He used Sithis to stop Mannimarco. Mannimarco was seeking to change Hammerfell from a land of the living to the land of the dead. On the other hand, John was seeking to keep Hammerfell as it is. Once John made Sithis interfere, the price he had to pay was more expensive, since what he sought was stasis, opposite to the will of Sithis. However, there is a major exploit here. Sithis can flip realities and change fates like nothing if offered the right sacrifice. So a sacrifice to Sithis can do a lot, John concluded. Well, it depends. You may sacrifice a whole town, just as a figure of speech, and that sacrifice may get you nowhere just because there is a future that would be absolutely tricky to change. Someone with stronger fate, for example. Yeah, kinda figured that part out. But it keeps me thinking. Sithis offers change, but the change doesn't just go between two directions. There is always an infinite number of possibilities. As I told you, Sithis has his funny sway. You don't expect anything but change. Well, my only comfort to you is that if you are changing something from the absolute worst, it should go better, she said. John thought for a while. Like, for example, if a monarch of a broken nation was killed in the name of Sithis, his nation's fate may shift for the better. He mumbled. Yeah, that's an example. She replied mindlessly, then looked at him mischievously. He. Please, don't tell me you are a desperate lord who is going to offer himself to Sithis? Me? Never. I am a lord, all right, but I'm doing better than most. You may have read my name in some history book in your time. Or maybe, I have a dynasty in my name. John said, not being one bit humble. Not even interested in human history. John stopped fooling around and began thinking of what the elf girl told him about Sithis. This is indeed some great ideas for him. Change is important and dangerous, making the influence of Sithis, if employed right, able to turn any tide. Maybe that scenario in John's head was the same as this. Either way, I think that we managed to stabilize the time bubble. No storms for the time being, but we need to expand it. The girl said. Expand it? John asked. Yes. Find more time bubbles, connect them together, create a space stable enough to go through the next step, she said. What might that be? Summon the gates of chaos. Sometime later. Fuck. What? Gates of chaos. Sea of chaos. Heart of chaos. Shit of chaos. I am getting more tired of the dull narrative. John complained. Keep digging, the elf girl replied. Fuck off. Why should I work for free? You dig, I build. That's the deal. Bitch. Can't hear you. God. I hate this bitch. So let's sum what happened so far. The merry band of dumbass and bitch had to work together for the sake of expanding the time bubble. To do so, they started using their Elder Scrolls in order to find other time bubbles and expand the space. After an unknown time, the elf girl revealed how to summon the gates of chaos. Simply, they needed to build it by their hand. How? Well, this place isn't just desert, it is either desert or stone. The desert's sand is rough and pale while the stone was very black and incredibly sturdy. John recognized this stone as obsidian. Obsidian is extremely rare and valued. Even though it is hard to carve even with magic, it was seen as one of the most powerful cleaners of negative energies. It is also very valued by the Dunmare. Now, according to the elf girl, they had to dig inside the lands of the time bubble to find obsidian. While very rare, it must be gathered at all costs in order to move forward. After exhausting the time bubble they were in from all obsidian, they moved to another time bubbles and started extracting it. John was digging while the girl was arranging the obsidian they got. Once John saw a gate made of obsidian, he started acting like a brat. No. You can't just build a nether portal in this place. It looks exactly like the end. I have no clue what this dumbass is ranting about. Wait, have I ever told you about them ender dragons? John asked. Shut up. Jokes aside, John was watching carefully while the girl arranged a large obsidian gate and made the stone firm together. He wasn't sure how much time passed, but as soon as they ended, the final preparation began. You have done a good job for a human, dumbass, she said. I know elves who can sneeze and do a better job than you, but with what's available, you've done a good job as well, bitch. This is getting interesting, isn't it? We are in the final phase of the journey. I don't care. I just want to get the fuck out of here, find a nice cool Altmarai beach, and smoke Dunmary weed for all the shit I have been through. I'll do it for at least a year. I am speechless, you truly know how to party. Ha! Parties usually last for a few days in Winterhold. A year would be a record, but I am sure of myself. Winterhold, huh? Heard about it being some cultural hub in Skyrim. Right. It was a great city before the collapse, it will return to glory again. What collapse? The girl tilted her head. The collapse? John said as if it's the most obvious of things. Like a disaster. Duh. Big time. Never read about it. Disaster events tend to get buried in history. Wars and kingdoms do not, so maybe your so-called dynasty has become so famous or something. True. John nodded. Well, chat time is over. Let's begin the ritual. Should I bring some flint and steel? No idea what that's for. With the gate fully made, the elf girl took out some paper and started revising a ritual from it. As a cleansing stone, the obsidian gate will be powered by the law of time through an elder scroll to eliminate all traces of chaos and make a time focus point which by its part will attract a greater amount of chaos to equalize it. That greater amount of chaos will destroy the time bubble, but at the same time will act as a gateway to the heart of chaos, the deepest point in creation. Ready. Born ready. Wait a second. Now ready. What's that? That is how I found the time bubble. His name was Zane. John took out Zane's body from his shadow with the assistance of Nefertiti. Is that a body cursed by Sidhis? Yes, and an excellent navigator in the chaos. Not a great conversation partner, though. Zane was still in his battle uniform, clenching his spear even after death. In the time bubble, he's a dead man, but once they return to chaos, he will be a good ally. You should have shown that to me first. The girl focused her attention on Zane's body and nodded. Perfect. It will help, but we need to bind it once we reach the other side, she said. All right. As long as it doesn't bite us in the butt. Worry not. Confident, the elf girl started the ritual using her elder scroll. The energy arc was created and the time bubble started to go unstable. Time storms, earth tremors, shattered realities and echoes of their voices coming from the past. Even the light was breaking. We can't stay longer, this place will rip us apart, John said. Here we go. The elf girl pointed at the obsidian gate of chaos as it started, and a very thin veil of chaos covered the gate, giving a purple hue. I told you it's a nether portal. Call it whatever you want. She pulled John, who by his part carried Zane's body, and they all went through the portal. Can you see anything? Give me a moment. It was too dark to see. Even with the magic they harnessed from the Elder Scrolls, it was still impossible to see. This is truly tricky, John thought to himself. Homan. Suddenly, Nefertiti used the mental link to call him. Yes. You won't see, you are in the shadow world, she said. The hell? The shadow world is the other side of reality. A reality of a different frequency affected by the shadows of the real world. Still, the living shouldn't exist in this reality. The nether portal, I mean the gate of chaos, led us to a shadow dimension, John said. What's that? The elf girl asked. An obscure reality of animate and inanimate shadows leaching to a real world, John summed up. So you're saying we are in some sort of a world, but we are shadows? The elf girl freaked out. Believe it or not, I know a guy who can do the same thing all day long, John said, remembering his exclusive stalker, the self-proclaimed Shadow. This is a far-fetch, but it is happening. According to Shadow's explanation, if a being can't exist in a certain world in any form other than the form of a shadow, then it means they are in a higher and stabler dimension. Earth is the highest dimension John ever known. Mundus is lesser than Earth but higher than Aetherius, Oblivion, Clockwork City and such subworlds. Magic doesn't exist on Earth, but it exists on Mundus, while immortals can't live on Mundus, but can do so in Etherius and Oblivion. One can grade it into mortal, magic and immortal worlds judging by the functionality. Now, if John is in a higher dimension and can only manifest as a shadow, then he may be on Earth or a world of the same grade. Nefertiti, possess my eyes. Let me see what you see, John said. Without effort, John's eyes transformed into that of a cat with the skin around his eyes turning black. I can see, he said. How? The elf girl asked. A special trait. John wanted to brag, but as soon as he took a good look at his surroundings, he almost went speechless. What? Never mind that now, you said your portal would take us to the heart of chaos or whatever. Sure it is not the butthole? John said. Hey! The elf girl shouted at him. Okay, it is just we are in this large cave and there are a shit ton of tunnels. Don't really know what goes where. John explained. They were indeed in a large cave system, or in the shadows of it. Either way, there was no sort of lightning on reality's side to at least get a hint of sight on the shadows' side. I am not sure. This part is where we start looking, she said. All right, John said and turned to Zane. Surprisingly, the supposedly dead Zane was standing up and awake. How on earth is this guy awake? He asked. You mean the body you had? It shouldn't be, the elf girl said. He's standing on his own but pretty much silent, John said. This doesn't make any sense. If he is awake, then we must be in the chaos, but the place we are in has shadows, which means it has time, she concluded. Time and chaos coexisting? John questioned. Only the heart of chaos can achieve that. Get me closer to him, she replied. John guided her right next to Zane, and she used her Elder Scroll to connect with Zane, as if he was a zombie. With that, she could control him and see through his eyes. I can see now. Good. Now what? John asked. It would be nice if things were less mysterious, but this cave looks huge. We don't have full access to our full magic potential, and your physical ability is useless as a shadow, she said. I have an idea then, John said. Let Zane roam on his own. He is a being of chaos now, so he will be drawn more to it, John said. Dumbass, you are actually getting smarter by the minute. Sticking around me surely benefited you a lot. You bitch needs some good old ass smacking, but let's hold that for later. Alright. Zane, lead the way. The two weren't in the mood to argue more, and so they let Zane move around. Truth be told, the shadow dimension is very still and quiet to the point where it made them feel like sleeping. No wonder Nefertiti loves to nap in such places. Either way, they walked across tunnels and through an endless scale of caves. At some point, John managed to see some water stream that had salty water, which made him conclude that this gigantic cave system is somewhere under a large sea. The thought of being under a sea is very unsettling, but it was impossible to go back anywhere. Truth be told, even the portal they came through has disappeared, making John regrettably understand it was no nether portal. After an unknowable time, the group finally arrived at a place that looked distinctive from the other tunnels. It was where the cave floor ended and a large waterway took place. Is that a boat? On the edge of the waterway, the elf girl spotted a boat tied to a wooden pole. The rope was rotten and the boat was barely together. What in the blazes is this place? John asked. Why ask me? But still, your friend Zane seems to be willing to go further, she replied. Quite curious. The craftsmanship of this boat is like nothing I know, John said as he got closer to the boat. I think the real mystery is its existence under the sea in a waterway, and even tied by someone, the girl said. The craftsmanship may reveal an answer, but as I don't know of it, let's assume it is otherworldly, John said as he got on the boat carefully, and thanks to being shadows, we don't weigh anything, so we won't even damage the rotten boat, or even move it. Perfect. This was a strange situation. The boat was quite large indeed, and despite the damage, it looked barely good enough for one last sail yet. John tried to swim in the water, but for some reason, these waters seemed to be preventing him from moving, as if the shadows are not welcome or no one can cross without the boat. The party of two started looking around for any clue that might help, and at some point, the elf girl noticed something under the water. "Are those coins?" John tried to look as well, and indeed there were coins under the water. They didn't seem like a treasure, but rather looked like gold and silver coins. Their origins were also a mystery and didn't match each other, as John couldn't recognize their design if there is anything left from exposure to the elements. "Coins and a boat? Romantic," John said. "Romantic?" The elf girl was taken aback. "Don't you see? A strange mystery. What do coins and boats have in common?" John asked. "Nothing. Boats float, coins sink," she said. "Or maybe it is payment for the boat," John said with a mysterious air. "Dumbass. My patience is running short. What do you mean by payment? Who the fuck would pay a boat?" she asked. Interesting question. I do have coins on me, so let's see," John said, and retrieved a coin from the cube. He didn't really care and tossed the coin in the water. As the coin originated from his shadow dimension, there was no way it could cross dimensions on its own, but as soon as it came in contact with the water, it was taken away immediately by the other side of reality. "Interesting," John mumbled. "What's going on?" "Look, the boat." The elf girl noticed the change and further, something happening on the boat. It was clear that at the edge of the boat, the place got unnaturally lit all of a sudden. It was lit with something faint. It was at first a lantern hanging on an oar, and the oar was held by someone or something. As the faint light slowly grew, the identity of the one holding the oar was still a mystery, as it was that of a humanoid covered in an old tattered cloak and a hood rotten as the boat itself. There was no face to be seen or breath to be heard. This thing has less presence than that of a dead body, and unseen even by the eyes of the likes of John and Nefertiti. Truth be told, even John was scared, let alone the elf girl, who was getting pale under her large robe and hood. "Bitch, your relative by any chance?" "No." John looked forward and wanted to greet the person on the boat, but he was greeted first. "Shades." A ghastly voice came from the man on the boat, causing a feeling of dread to strike John and the elf girl as it rang in their heads. It was clearly calling for them. "We seek passage to the heart of chaos," the elf girl spoke. The man on the boat didn't respond by words, but rather lowered his oar to shed light on the boat's blanks, a sign of him for them to ride. The two looked at each other and came to an understanding. They are finally received wherever they are. Slowly and carefully, John went in and sat first, then she followed as she sat beside him and tried to hide from the man on the boat behind John. Zane sat behind them, and the man on the boat barely moved the oar in the water, making the boat finally move. Silence followed as the area past the waterway was dark. Not even the eyes of Nefertiti or Zane could see through it. John and the elf girl sat quietly until she finally mustered up the urge to talk. "What is going on?" she asked. "What do you mean? How did you know? There is no mention to this part in the ritual," she said. "As you said, we may be the only ones who reached this far," John replied. "I mean, how did you know about the boat and the coins?" "Yes, that. I don't know. A story I heard in the past, but I don't quite remember," John said. Actually, it was the opposite. He didn't want to speak too much in the presence of the man on the boat, but he could remember a legend from his past life. The Ferryman of the Dead. It was a tale from the Greek mythology about a ferryman named Charon, the ferryman of Hades, who carries souls of the newly deceased across the rivers Styx and Acheron that divided the world of the living from the world of the dead. A coin to pay Charon for passage as a payment or maybe a bribe, but at the end of the day, that was just a myth from a world John has far since parted. Can it be that he is on Earth? No, This isn't even possible. But why such a coincidence? He was indeed fond of the myths and legends, thus he thought of this particular myth once he saw a boat and coins, but for the myth to be something witnessable, John had to make sure what this was all about. After some time there was finally light at the end of the tunnel. The waterway they were in opened to a wider area, and soon, the two travelers no longer needed special methods to see. Where they are now is like a very wide river that was still running in a cave, and from the looks of it, their tunnel was nothing but a part of a larger network that all connects to this major river. Numerous numbers of tunnels were open to this river, and some of them had boat wreckage on them. "Look down there," the elf girl called and pointed under the water to see a strange ghastly being passing in the water. "Those are some big-ass sperms." John could only compare them to one thing in his mind, but thankfully, they were not. The ferryman didn't seem interested in John's comments and the elf girl's curiosity, and would row from time to time. After a long ride, the ferryman stopped the ferry at the right bank of the river and spoke for the second time. "Shades!" This was a sign of them to get out. The voice of the ferryman itself was enough for them to run for 1,000 miles just to unhear it. As their souls were done shivering, John and the girl finally moved once again, this time at the river's bank, while seeing the ferry move away. In this strange place, there was a large pathway leading somewhere away from the river, and it seemed wide and empty, surrounded by strange rock spurs. It was a clear indication not to stray away from this road. The two were happy to be guided and simply walked the path, talking only when necessary. There was a lot of attention and anticipation until they came across something quite out of the ordinary. "You have traveled for a long distance. You must be weary." The voice came at them out of nowhere, making the two look around like the chickens that lost their heads. Unlike the voice of the ferryman, this voice was calm and good, but the thing with it was that it came from every direction. As the two looked at every possible direction, the only place left for them was to look up, and lo and behold. "Dumbass, that's clearly your relative." "Yeah, the similarities are striking." There were those pair of eyes looking at them from the ceiling of the cave. Despite the darkness that covered the cave, those eyes shone brightly, yet they were not the eyes of a being John would know, not even from the legends of his past life. "What's up?" John raised his hand to greet whatever being that was. "Not much these days, travelers. We don't receive a lot of visitors in this desolate place. A group came with boats a few centuries ago. Oh, and there was that man who came here right before you, a good-hearted fellow. I gave him the mark or virtue. Who else?" "None, I guess. Then you came." The creature on the ceiling spoke for quite some time compared to what John expected, but there was completely no point in understanding what was said. "You are quite the talkative fellow," John said. "Oh, where are my manners? I seem to have been on here for a long time that I forgot myself. Forgive me, Shades." The creature on the ceiling started moving from the dark spot, as if it was walking on the ceiling of the cave, then walked on the wall, until it reached the edge of light, and walked out. John and the elf girl were utterly speechless from what they saw. First of all, they are in the shadow dimension, which makes them see everything with a gloomy vision, but that creature was just making it worse. It was large, walking on four. It had wings on its back and two majestic horns on its head. Its head was similar to a bison, its neck was slender, its chest was strong like a lion, its ways was agile like a cat, its legs were long and had long claws, its tail was long and feathered. All of its body was covered in majestic feathers and fluff, but its eyes were just that of a human. That's why the two were less threatened when they saw the eyes first. Either way, it looked like a strange crossbreed between a dragon, a bird, and a feline. "First time seeing a beast?" the creature asked. "You call yourselves a beast?" the elf girl questioned. "Isn't that what I am? And what are you, really?" she asked. "Me? In your understanding, I am nothing but a guardian of this place, for now." "Are you an ender dragon?" John asked. "That's quite the word, my friend. I don't like being called a dragon, though. Excuse my rudeness, then. It's nothing. You said you are the guardian. Do you guard the heart of chaos? The elf girl jumped straight to the point. The heart, you call it? Well, it may be true. It is in the monastery at the end of this road past the bridge over the lake where all the waterways meet. The frank answer of the beast startled both John and the elf girl. You are quite open about the heart's location? Aren't you the guardian? John asked. Indeed, but it is beyond your understanding. I do not guard it in the way a hound guards a place, but worry not, I am not to stop you or fight you for your aim. I am but a herald of prayers and peace. The beast said. It was difficult to imagine such a beast being a herald of prayers, let alone peace, but why is it acting friendly? And if you are not to stop us from reaching the heart, what is your purpose for talking to us now? The elf girl asked. What you call the heart is something filthy. It seeks corruption and it is evil. I call it the source of all evil. If you are to go there, it will corrupt you to seek its freedom. My duty is to protect you from its influence. The beast said. So you like a guardian to what goes in there? Not to keep evil for going out? John asked. You can say so. And if that's the case, let's not waste each other's time then, John said. You are right. I took much of your time already. My little brother is about to visit and I am eager to meet him, so I'll leave you to your errand with a parting gift. Approach me, shades. John and the elf girl were still on guard, but they were out of options. Whatever that parting gift is, it must be the protection from the influence of the heart of chaos. Once they approached the beast, it held up its right foreleg, and one of its claws approached the elf girl first. It slowly touched her forehead, and a glimpse of light occurred. You seem to have suffered a lot. May your road guide you to love instead of vengeance, and find the true meaning of the life that God gave you. The beast said to the elf girl. She seemed bitter as she heard the words of the beast, but her turn was over, and the beast directed its claw towards John. As for you, the beast almost uttered a name John had discarded a long time ago. John hurriedly held the beast's claw. How do you know that name? John asked. Well, of course, I have been expecting you. The beast replied. Expecting me? Why? John was not understanding how this happened. The beast looked at John with interest. A fate has in store for you more than what you bargained for. Have faith, seeker of peace. Light shone from the claw of the beast. John could see that the source of this light was a ring, but he couldn't take more time to look at it as his consciousness almost turned hazy for a second before he regained sight again. What? Wait, where is it? As if waking from a bad dream, John kept looking around, but he no longer saw the beast. It is gone. The elf girl said as she held John. Are you all right? John took a moment to calm himself and finally came to realize that there is no presence of the beast anymore. I am fine. Are you all right? Do you feel any different? John asked. I don't feel any different, she said and looked around. We are a long way from home. I am sorry. What for? Dragging you all the way with me. I feel that Don't get soft on me, bitch. I am fine. If it wasn't for you, I still would have been looking for a way out of that time bubble. John said and calmed down for a bit. That beast. This place, we shouldn't stay for long, it is not meant for us. Let's see that thing you are after and get the hell out of here. To them, they have already ventured deep enough into the most undesired of all places. John doesn't want to meet any creepy characters like the ferryman and the beast anymore. If the heart of chaos is the way back to Mundus, then he will do his best in the coming part. The two traveled further ahead, each to their thoughts. That beast knew too much from his name of his past life to the fate he has. Such a thing was a little bit disturbing. He was even called the Seeker of Peace or something. How can John dare be called such a thing? On the other hand, the girl was thinking about something. The more she thought of it, the more she was filled with rage. This continued until the two followed by Zane arrived at the bridge across the large lake. The scenery was breathtaking as the cave expanded even further to fit a gigantic lake where many rivers would meet. At the center of the lake was an island, and all the water around it was swirling as if being drained. This particular scene made the lake very dangerous to sail on. The bridge across the lake was leading to that central island, which happened to have a large building on its center. The monastery. Looks like so. The elf girl mindlessly rushed towards the monastery. John felt like wanting to slow her down, but in the end, he followed her alongside Zane. They reached the large building after running across the rocky bridge, and soon found themselves in front of a large immovable gate. "So this is it," John said as he touched the gate of the monastery. "Whatever evil thing lies beyond this, make sure to get what we need and get going." "You don't need to tell me that," the elf girl replied. "All right, let's not cause another oblivion crisis while doing this. Here I go." John used all his power to push the door, which responded to him. On the other hand, the girl lagged in her place to what John just said. Oblivion? Crisis? That was not right. Completely different from what she assumed. How does a person from a past era like him know of a modern history? She wanted to ask, but the door was already open. John walked in and she followed, intending to talk, yet all the thoughts in her head went away with a boof once she saw the interior. Comparing the outside to the inside was almost impossible, as the monastery felt like nothing from what the outside shows. It was not some trick with time and space, but rather the place itself was deep, and extremely deep at that. The monastery was but the peak of a titanic building that has sunk in the lake, yet the waters refused to enter it. The further the monastery went down, the wider it got and the more terrifying it felt. Still, the only way they saw is down. So the so-called monastery is nothing but the peak of this sunken building, and we entered through the island, which is actually the roof. Interesting, John said. This is all incredible. In my whole life, I've never seen such a thing. The elf girl said. Me too, but the building was never finished, John said while pointing around. This monastery was supposed to be the crown of the building, but some of its walls weren't even built fully yet. This explains the lack of texture and decorations from the outside. Such a building in a place like this? She asked. My best guess, it wasn't built here. You're telling me someone moved all this tower-like thing from its place and threw it in a cave? It was quite the absurd claim, but John was positive. The building they are on at the moment is as tall as the white gold tower in Cyrodiil. For such a thing to be put in a cave is simply a far-fetch, but John knew a thing or two about architecture and could tell that this building was built with greatness to be witnessed by the whole world, not to be hidden in a cave. The fact that the water was warded from the building by an invisible wall meant that it didn't belong here in the first place. To go down the building, they had to travel in circles around its perimeter, as the building was designed in a spiral shape where it grows wider the further down one goes to the base. Most of the tower was old, but John felt multiple ghastly presences all around the place that seemed to belong to ghost-like beings. As shades, John and the elf girl were not recognized as a threat by these things and passed effortlessly down to the innermost area of the tower. May I ask you something? At that point, the elf girl spoke to John. What's wrong? Can you tell me which era you're from? Her question was straightforward. Weren't you the one who told me not to speak of our timelines? John asked. Yes, but I just like to make sure. Fourth era, year 2H. Stop it. She raised her hand to stop him from saying more. What? Just shit. Seeing her upset all of a sudden unsettled John. He wanted to ask, but before he said anything, the land started to shake. Whoa. Hold on tight. John rushed and covered the girl to protect her, but as soon as the shaking settled down, they looked around and saw an end to their path where a large gate opened. The two of them are not just random adventurers, they are the most reckless and adventurous souls of their respective timelines. Their vast experience prepared them for nearly anything except that. Overwhelmed. That was the first of all the negative emotions they felt. Fear kicked in right after. It made them almost lose their heads, but at the same time, froze them in place. Weak. They completely realized that what's after that point is a whole new animal they aren't even equipped for. Actually, they were equipped by the mark of the beast, yet the two of them, who faced Daedra and senseless evil before, were not just imagining the kind of situation they are in. The heart of chaos is nothing but the focus point of all evil. It is not a mistake of creation but rather the ultimate evil ever created. Life is a series of trials, and that thing is just the complete package. It looked into John and the elf girl, reading their thoughts, memories and emotions in one single second or maybe less. Suddenly, all that emotions were turned against them. Imagine the source of your strength being the source of your weakness. John saw things in one moment that made some of the red hairs on his head start to lose color. The dread in his eyes was nothing he ever imagined to experience. In his head, he became a prisoner locked in mazes and in labyrinths, chased by his worst fears and experiencing the most terrible moments of his life. The elf girl was in the same situation as John. She saw herself in a sea of blood and fire with all the ones she lost present around her. They were being rained by stones from the sky, and those who died and turned to burning shreds would come to chase her and drag her to see their faces. Despair. Not even John would admit before, but there was no escape from that emotion. He was utterly broken for a moment. It feels fantastic, isn't it? The thing that spoke right to their souls was a terribly powerful being. John has gone through the realm of the Daedric Prince Vermina and dealt with those terrible shifting dreams, but he has no power against the owner of that voice. He was awake now, not because that he could but because he was allowed to. John looked at the elf girl and saw her shaking on the ground, traumatized from fear. Hang in there. Hey. Listen to my voice. Listen to me. John held her closer as she kept fighting him in terror. She was in a panic attack, and consumed by every meaning of the word. Took her some time to calm down, but when she was about to think straight, she went into a phase of crying and calling names. Such scars from her past were never meant to heal. They drove her to the depth of the abyss after all. It was then later, when she was powered again by anger. She felt destroyed, but she had nothing more to lose either way, thus she let go of John and charged to the direction where that mental attack came from. Stop. Be careful. Yes, come to me, child. Let me have a look at you. The voice was creeping John out the more it spoke, but he endured every primal instinct pushing him backward and chased after the girl, followed by Zane. When they arrived at the center of the tower, John found himself behind the elf girl, who was standing in the center of a vast room. He looked around the empty room, seeing nothing but vastness and emptiness, but once he followed her eyes, John found her looking up at the ceiling. He looked up as well, and there where he saw it. It is not a heart, it is not a monster or anything Cthulhu-like. It was just a man. A man wrapped in black binds and sitting on a throne. The throne was reversed up the ceiling, and the man's arms were fixed on the armrests by binds and chains. These binds covered everything of the man except for his left piss-like yellow eye. Huh? Shades of all the bloody things, I get visited by shades again, and a corpse this time as well? How insulting! The man spoke with disappointment but was angered with the sight of Zane. A strange force blasted towards Zane out of nowhere, sending him out of the tower towards the lake. There was no stopping it, as Zane's body was already swallowed by the lake. No! John shouted as he was powerless to do anything. He wanted to honor Zane by returning his body to Isha and give him a proper burial, yet this was the end of it. The anger almost made John spit out blood as he turned at the man. You! Where are my manners? I am the humble human who owns this humble place, my name well, forget about that. I bid you welcome, shades, to the Tower of Babel. The man spoke in a lazy, slow voice, giving the nastiest dreads to John and the elf girl, but at the same time, John could recognize what he meant by the Tower of Babel. It's a legendary construction made by an ancient king of Babylon in order to reach heaven. The tower doesn't exist on the face of Earth anymore, but to come across such a thing here. Where is this place? What are you? John asked with obvious hostility towards the man. Don't you recognize your god, Shade? Didn't you just witness my powers? God? John's face twisted from the sick joke. Look at yourself, reversed and chained like the freak you are. John's words weren't done before an overwhelming pain struck him from all over his body. It was unbearable. John howled from the agony like a broken beast. His mind was almost shattered, but in the depth of his suffering, he suddenly collapsed silent, then started laughing. Pathetic. Lying on the ground, John cursed the chained man while enduring a greater pain than before. Stop hurting him. The elf girl tried to shield John with the powers of her Elder Scroll, but it was useless. Don't you recognize what I am? Don't you see the suffering I can inflict? Who else can I be other than God, worm? With John howling from the pain and his eyes tearing blood, he was no longer able to resist this damage. Denounce your false idol, fool. Worship me. In the end, the suffering stopped and John could breathe again, but he was in the sorriest state he had ever been in. Huff, huff, huff. John breathed as hard as he could and struggled to be pushed up. He raised his head to the man and smiled with his white teeth covered in blood. He. I see. Suffering, pain, you're so lame. For a bad guy, you're too bad. John spoke as he was supported up by the elf girl. You are but an insolent worm. You want insolence? Just wait until I put my hands on you and spit in that eye of yours. Enough. Enraged, the chained man was at the end of his patience as he blasted John away the same way he blasted Zane's body. Only difference is that John crashed into a wall and fell unmoving. No, don't hurt him. Amidst the hostility between John and the chained man, the elf girl was crying from the terror and the pain. Seeing that the only companion she traveled with is on the brink of demise, she felt sorry for dragging him down the abyss with her. Once again, she is the only one surviving as the disaster takes everyone around her. Please, don't hurt him. If you are a god, find it in your heart to be merciful. She fell on her knees and prayed to the chained man. She realized the difference of power between her and that self-proclaimed god. She is in no way compared to him. Ha! Submit to me. Even though it won't save the insolent one, I can bless you. The man said, full of himself. Please, just send him to his time, only him. I will serve. Don't. As the girl was ready to kneel and worship, John's voice came from the deepest of his, while raising one arm up as he turned to her. No. Realizing that John is still hell-bent on defying the chained man, the girl was begging for John to stop. You truly are something, aren't you? The man was displeased with John. No, he's not in his right mind. Spare him. The elf girl tried to divert the attention from John, but the latter wasn't really helpful regarding that. No. My head, it was never this clear. John pushed himself up with his only intact arm and rested his back to the wall he crashed into. Admirable, but useless. Shut up. John was annoyed by the man, yet he turned to the girl. Little bitch. That guy, he's the heart of chaos. The girl felt a terrifying shiver in her body as the man's eyes glared right at her. Truthfully, she expected that the man would be in possession of the heart or under its influence, but for the heart itself to be a man. What do you want from the heart, Shade? The man asked with a spiteful tone. Being exposed to the spite of such a being was devastating, but John's voice kept her together. He's weak. He's nothing. Just like Sid is. He is as empty as void. He can be true, but he is also false. John said, glaring with hate at the man. I am not false. The man was raging and squirming in his bind, but no matter what, he couldn't do anything to John other than mess with his mind. The word false seemed to be very effective against him, too. Fuck you. That hurts. John was resisting the pain, and even canceling it as he started to realize the power of the man more and more. Damn you. Kneel. Worship me. I am your god. Seeing that the two reached a deadlock, the elf girl was recovering from her trauma slowly. John is still badly injured, but seeing how the two went on against each other, she was certain that this is the power of telepathy. The man was a very powerful telepathic psychic. As a genius, she started piecing the parts together on her own until she made a theory. You are not the heart itself, you are like its spirit. A manifestation of a sort. If the heart is like Padme, you are just like Sid is, she said. Don't lump me with the likes of those imitations, the man said as he stopped assaulting John. Imitations? She asked. Pathetic things. You are a shade. You are lesser than a real person. You are not meant to understand the power. Come on. John cut him. More facts, less bullshit. We didn't fish ourselves out of that goddamn chaos to hear you ranting like a fucking teenager. We are all adults here, for fuck's sake. John was furious with the man. Don't pressure yourself, the girl shouted at John. Anything that man says is a lie. His existence is based on twisting the truth. He is sealed for all we care about, and we don't want him to influence us. John warned her. I get it, she said and turned to the man. I only came here to draw power from the heart. I'm not interested in your schemes. How interesting! And why would I give you my power? I see no benefit in you. You are marked by the beast. Unless you kneel and submit, the heart is useless to you. The girl was distressed by the answer. Lies, John said. This was not a lie. If it was not a lie, then it wasn't the whole truth. The man didn't reply, which caused the elf girl to look at John, wondering how he figured that out. What? I am married. There was surely more to the truth, but she didn't focus on John. Tell us how to draw power from the heart, she asked the man. And why would I? Because your power will also grow, right? The more people connected to the heart, the more influence you have, she said. Oh, indeed. I can't deny that. But you are still a shade. Why is that a problem? She asked. It is simple. You came from a lesser world, and I am simply not interested in influencing it, as it is useless. You have that thing you call Sithis, a cheap imitation of my image. He's enough for you. The girl seemed distressed about that answer. She indeed drew power from Sithis before, but it was never enough. She needed more power to obliterate her enemies. Then what is it you desire? She finally asked the right question. Servitude, the man said, for when the time comes, be one of my lieutenants, a disciple. I will take great care of you. It was an offer better than any. If she swears fealty to the chained man, she will have him as her backer. If it is like that, then she shall engulf her enemies from the face of Nirn. That's not a fair exchange, John interrupted. You can't be her lord with just some promises of power. She's immature and hasty. Given her aptitude, she can achieve her goals by her own hands. She is in no way in need of any power from that heart of yours. No, my enemies, they are strong, the elf girl said with a weak look in her eyes. Don't tell yourself that. I wasn't even a master mage when I extorted a Daedric prince once. Believe me, mortals like us may have been created weak, but that's only because of how much potential we have. If I can muster my power in this place, I would have beaten that motherfucker black and blue, John said as he was still resting against the wall. Insolent. Just get down here and I'll show you. The chained man tried to assault John's head again and again, but John's mind has already been through the furthest depths of chaos. he experienced madness, and to his mind, all thoughts can be lucid and controllable. It left them at a point where they could neither go anywhere with the chained man. He was as narrow-minded as John, yet because of the ridiculous amount of seals on him, he was in no way getting to do more than what he already can. "Where does this leave us now?" the elf girl asked. "I am sorry, but the power of the heart is too much for you. If you agree to the terms of that jerk, your fate will be sealed in my opinion. I won't be stopping you though if it is your choice," John said. The girl was having a tough time, especially after the mind attack, but John was right. She may have lost a lot, but she still can live her life free from the servitude to a dreadlord who fancies himself a god. "What should we do then? How can we return?" she asked. John didn't plan that much ahead, but he didn't need to. There is someone that might help them. "Let's get out of here. I think the beast can help us," John said as he helped himself up. "You are not going anywhere. Submit." The man wanted to stop John and the elf girl, but the two were ready for him. "Go fuck yourself," John said as he started retreating, and the elf girl supported him. On the other hand, the chained man was not taking this very well. "Stop. I command you. I said stop. You insolent worms. Don't you know what I am? I'll break you. I'll break you all." The rage of the chained man made fighting him 10 times harder, but still, they were almost out of the place when a diabolical thought came to that man. He wouldn't let them leave like that. He needs to teach them a lesson, even if it costs him a finger. And that's what he did. He sacrificed a finger by squeezing himself in the binds as much as he could. Snap. With that snap, he managed to free the finger that was broken and hurriedly uses the nail of his thumb to injure that finger, letting down a drop of blood. It was all that he needed. The binds around the broken finger soon reacted and put it back where it was, but the black drop of blood was already out. It only needed one thing, and it already had two targets. Outside the binds, the full power of the chained man was unleashed directly towards John. Even if he was in his best condition, there was no evading that one. In an instant, John's instincts were screaming for him, but he wasn't that fast. The drop of blood found the weakness in Greed's protection and struck right in. All the colors faded in John's eyes, and he no longer could control anything. "Ah ha 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 ha!" As the creepy laugh echoed around, the elf girl found John falling on the ground. Just as she touched Greed, it completely collapsed like liquid, and a horrifying scene appeared. John's body was completely engulfed by that single drop of blood. "Witness my power, worm. Survive this." She tried to do anything. Her Elder Scroll magic wasn't as fast as the spread of that blood. The chaos was infecting John at a terrifying speed. No, 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 no. She used all the output of her ability to stop the spreading, but she couldn't have known that the chaos would retaliate against her. As the black blood expanded, it started an attempt to devour Greed, which resisted relentlessly, but through it, that drop of blood was able to come in contact with the elf girl. Shit! The situation turned messier than anyone could have imagined, and before she even felt it, her vision was on the ground right next to John. The faintest memory she had was a voice. A voice that came from outside. "He's here. Hurry!" 3 figures sped down around the mighty Tower of Babel. They were the weirdest company ever seen, but in John's book, these are some of the most mysterious 3 individuals he ever met. An Etiada, an Elenfey, and an otherworldly stalker. This is grand. I have never seen anything of the sort. This is beyond sense, and I have no sense. I should have brought my cheese ideas note, some pretty good ideas I can copy from this place to add to dementia, a fancy white-haired man said as he agilely walked in big strides. "This is not the time, Mad King." A ninja-like man shrouded in a unique slender black armor replied to him, then turned to the third. "You understand what you must do, Blondie. Grab him and get the hell out." "I understand, Shadow." Mir, Sheogorath, and Shadow. How the three ended up together was a mystery of its own, but that all started when John was in Elsewhere. Sheogorath came to John at that time before they came across Zane and happened to be asking about Shadow. Shadow agreed to speak with Sheogorath, and it took them quite a long time to converse. Once John was taken by Sithis, Mir infiltrated into Dementia, which was the nearest realm of oblivion to the void, which alerted Sheogorath and Shadow. This led to the three going after John's traces on a journey of their own. "Hey, you never told us what's at the base of this tower," Sheogorath asked. "Certainly not Cheese. Don't look forward to meeting him," Shadow replied. "Him?" Mir asked. "A very unpleasant bastard. Don't tempt fate and fight him, he will win. He always does," Shadow said. It was not long until the three arrived at the site of the collapsing elf girl as the blood of chaos spread to her. "Shit, we're late." Shadow made a scary face as he saw John's situation. He looked right to the eyes of the man laughing on his reverse throne. "Armilus, you son of a bitch! Ahaha! Wait, more visitors. No. It is you. Thief." Shadow and the chained man seemed to be quite familiar. Armilus was the name of that man, actually, one of many names, but this was quite his least favorite. "Sheogorath, contain him. Whatever it is, and no matter what he says, don't try to push against him, only defend," Shadow said. "Oh ho ho! That's quite the troublesome fellow." Sheogorath stepped forward and blocked John and the elf girl from the mind of Armilus by himself. "Just make sure to save my nephew, it would be incredibly dull without him. You are a child of chaos, you are no match for me." Armilus was annoyed by Sheogorath's intervention, but the latter made a surprised face. "Look at this. You look so much like my old nanny after I tied her to a toilet with a cheesemonger skeever trapped in it. She was as annoyed as you are, half as energetic though. Sheogorath, by the way. Charmed." While Sheogorath had to deal with Armilus, Shadow stood above John and the elf girl. For the first time ever, he showed his true form. He was a man with golden eyes and long back hair, wearing a black slender armor lined with golden embroidery. It seemed like a combat robe, but there were traces of high-tech gadgets on his belt. John, damn it. That's too much chaos," Shadow said as he started performing a hand seal and muttering some words. In an instant, 7 colored stones came out of nowhere and encircled John and the girl. One of the stones, black in color, stood forward between the others and started absorbing the drop of blood that spread all over John's body. "No. Stop it, thief!" Armilus shouted once he saw Shadow dealing with the blood, but Sheogorath held him firm. "Sure, I can't do this guy a favor and shove my first down his throat, make a mush of his organs and an omelet of his brains?" Sheogorath asked Shadow. "As much as I would give an arm to see it happens, there is no defeating this guy." "Well, at least not now," Shadow replied and turned to Mir. "Blondie, once the time is right, take them both and flee back to your world." "All right, but what about her?" Mir pointed at the elf girl. "She's not one of your merry band?" Shadow asked. "No." "Well, holy shit." Shadow was about to suggest something, but he saw John's body twitching. "What?" Mir asked. "This guy, he was conscious the whole time," Shadow said. "From what it seemed, John has never passed out even under the influence of the blood drop. He was all right on his face with his senses blocked, but his willpower kept a part of him using his arms to push his body up from the ground, as if he was protecting something beneath him." Shadow suspected something and muttered a word, then a mysterious dark being came out of his shadow and carried John up. Nefertiti. Mir saw Nefertiti lying unconscious under John. It seemed John used the last bit of his power and consciousness to prevent the spreading of the blood of chaos towards her. Whoa! At the same particular moment, John jumped up from the arms of the dark being Shadow summoned and punched it away. His state was not right and his mind was in shambles. "John, calm down. Calm down. Here. Take your cat. Shadow stopped John's rampage before it started and handed the unconscious Nefertiti to him. Seeing her was enough to make John forget about the noise raging in his head and hold her closer right away. You can hear me, right? Shadow asked John. Looking forward, John saw an unfamiliar face but recognized the voice and the presence. Shadow? Mir? Shiagarath? John was struggling to stand straight, but he soon could see and hear the ones around him. Nephew, fancy seeing you, and you might want to put on some clothes, putting your uncle in a shameful situation here. Shiagarath said, smiling to the other, family assets. John looked around himself looking for agreed to cover himself. Here it is, John. Mir was going to hold up greed for John, yet the latter shouted, No, don't touch it. Yet it was too late. There was a faint trace from the blood of chaos on greed, causing it to dysfunction. Once another living organism made contact with greed, that faint trace of the blood of chaos jumped on Mir. No! Shadow himself panicked and directed the black stone that was done with the elf girl towards Mir, but that faint trace itself was enough to try and invade Mir. John wanted to hurry to Mir, but Shadow stopped him. That's not a big deal, don't worry. Damn it! Shadow tried to calm John, but it seemed the situation was not calming. What? John asked. He is not immortal, and he is not an immortal either. His body is already unstable. Shadow said, Don't worry, I got him. Take care of the girl. The messy situation was not getting any easier. Armilus, the manifestation of chaos, was raging in his telepathic clash against Shiagarath, who wasn't striking back. Shadow was taking care of Mir hastily, and John was covering himself with greed as he woke the elf girl up. What, where? She opened her eyes in an alarmed state, but she could see John holding her from doing anything reckless. Hey bitch, had a nice nap? What? We got reinforcements. A little help here, this guy is getting violent. Not the face, I said, not the face. Shiagarath was trying to fend off against Armilus, but it seemed the situation was getting ugly. We're in trouble again. John continued his explanations and turned to Shadow. How's Mir? Fine, you need to get moving now. Shadow replied, Mir, you take John. Shiagarath and I will take care of the girl. Shiagarath? It was then when the elf girl reacted, as if the name of a Daedric prince kicked her back to life. She looked towards the fancy white-haired gentleman who was holding his cane up against Armilus, and she was not terrified of anything more than him at the moment. Meanwhile, John checked on Mir. You're all right. Yes, don't look. Mir tried to hide his face, but John held his hand. There, John could see a black mark on Mir's face right under his left eye. Don't tell Isha, okay? Mir smiled and tried to brush it off, but John was furious. He turned around looking at Armilus, and the look in his eyes was of pure abhorrence. He wanted to curse or say something, but the words that came out were ones of those that identify John as a dare. One day it will be your turn, and I'll be there to take a piss on your corpse, John said as Mir started dragging him back towards an escape portal. Worm. I'll toss you in hell with my hands. I'll trample over everything you love. Armilus was as infuriated as John. After all, Shadow managed to steal more of his blood today. On the other hand, Shadow guided the elf girl back to another portal corresponding to her timeline. Yet she stopped and turned to John. Dumbass! She called. John turned to her. I was wrong, she said and held her hood, putting it down. John finally saw her face, and every fiber of his being shivered. If he can't recognize this face, even if it was a little younger, then he just should be damned into oblivion for all his life. I told you before that I am the one from the future, but it appears I am wrong, she said. I'll look for you and you look for me, I need answers. My name is Nerina. Added a pic for the Tower of Babel. Armilus and the Beast are characters from a future novel, Beast of the Apocalypse, first 2 chapters on free. Chapter 523 Her Son. Nice to have a new patron at Olio Tamarin, D rank. Patter 0n bit. ly/4dx5dx. YouTube bit. ly/2dx3dx. Discord gg/gkckva7. Instagram at don_dokmesi. Twitter at eldokmesi22. Present day Winterhold. John Dare returned. It needed less than 12 hours for the news to spread from Winterhold and Whiterun to reach every court in Skyrim. Messengers on fast horses were dispatched to all the concerned parties carrying this particularly important piece of news. Meanwhile in Winterhold, Clan Firemane took care of all the guests, delivering John's intentions of not incorporating himself with any business-related issues for the coming 3 days, as the journey around the continent has taken a toll on him. Of course, these 3 days are the most accurate time frame in which the representatives of the important forces will start flocking to Winterhold. That aside, John needed some time for familial peace away from the noises of the world. He had a lot of family members to bond with and many stories to tell. Most of the family members were in Winterhold to receive him for the first day. Heartwarming as it was, John had to spend all night receiving more family members and accepting drink. As the night came, everyone was so drunk that no one even noticed where they slept. By the next morning, John was the first to wake up, being the early bird he is. He looked around for Nurina, but all the ones sleeping around were the firemen. Noticing that Alina and Beth were also missing, John followed the direction in which he expected to find them, to the attic of his manor. The attic was exclusively made for Nefertiti, but Beth seemed to have been promised to share the room with her. John climbed up, and there he saw Alina conversing quietly with Beth while Nurina was gazing at the window with the morning haze making the outer world brighter. Seeing John coming in, Alina's face brightened and smiled at him. "You woke up?" she asked. "Yeah, do you have any hangover remedy?" John asked Alina while looking at Nurina. Alina noticed the hint and nodded. "I'll find you some. Beth, come with me. I'll show you something," she said, taking Beth away. John watched them leave, then turned to Nurina without saying anything. She didn't turn to him either, even with a hidden hint in her distant expressions reacting to his presence. Slowly, John approached and sat on the other side of the window, resting his back against the wall. Looking at Nefertiti, who was quietly sleeping on Nurina's lap, John smiled and finally spoke. "Congratulations, you have been chosen." Nurina's distant look went away as she closed her eyes for a second, then she looked at Nefertiti and replied, "She's a good girl. She missed you," John said, and looked at Nurina as she also looked at him. "And I missed you, mother." Nurina exhaled slowly and looked at John, seizing him up. "You have grown, baby boy," she said with a smile that felt to be hiding something. "You haven't said that word in a very long time," John replied. "You'll always be the baby boy I raise." Nurina's words struck deep. She is his mentor and his caretaker. She was the one who made John Dare who he truly is. She taught him nearly everything he knows. John was about to say something, but she interrupted him. "You wrote a book without consulting with me," she said. "Oh, sorry about that." John apologized. 2 years ago, he started writing a research paper under the title of The Timely Lie, that was made into a very interesting and advanced theory book. Most of the book were notes and observations John recorded throughout his research on the Sijic endeavor, but this wasn't the problem. It is part of the etiquette of the scholars to review the books they wrote on their mentors before going public with them. John had a debate at the Academy of Shad Astral regarding his book, but Nurina was not present, which can be seen as a form of being insolent to his master. "I sent you the book 1 month before going out with it," John said. "It is disrespectful to just send a book, boy. You must have brought it yourself." Nurina gave John no excuse. "I apologize." John didn't even try to argue. You were lucky Grandmaster FYR was present. He passed a good word about you to get you off the hook. Nerina said. Oh, all right. John nodded awkwardly. Nerina seemed to be scolding him for the fact that he was absent for more than 2 years, but in truth, once the book John wrote reached her, she kept bragging about it for 2 months straight. She walked around the College of Winterhold dropping bombs at the other departments that no one has a talent like her student, and even shamed the Archmage and his students to her heart's content. Seeing him looking down apologetically, Nerina had a gentle smile. You always wanted to become one. She spoke. Huh. A Dragonborn. Right? I always knew. John nodded. Yes, your past life thingy. The conversation came to another halt as they just couldn't organize what was on their minds. It is strange for how many things they wanted to share and exchange. What stopped them both was how to put these thoughts into words. At that time, during the two spoke and awkwardly stopped, seeing that the other one was about to open that subject. As the junior, John remained silent, but even as a senior, Nerina couldn't say much. Finally, she decided to speak. 175 years. John's eyes widened as he understood what she meant. That's what it took for my friend from Winterhold to show up. Turns out, my baby boy. Nerina's mental state seemed to be dire. Her eyes became empty as she returned to gaze at the window once again. John couldn't even comprehend what she was feeling, which made him just sit silent. Her distant look gave away the pain she felt, the years of waiting for answers and the times when she gave up on ever meeting him again. Nerina was young when she met John, young for an elf who was very involved in magic. 175 years ago, she went out of the chaos by the portal created by one of the people that came to rescue John. Ever since that day, she wanted more answers than what she was looking for. Taking actions based on the things she knows of a different timeline is a reckless move. That's the reason why she refused to share much information with him to begin with. The problem is that when he explained himself for the first time, he spoke of Manamarco and an Aldmarai dominion. As far as Nerina knows, this all happened around the 500s of the Second Era, an era before she was even born. She never expected that history would somehow repeat itself in the future, but that man spoke of things she never knew of. He spoke too little as she instructed him, but she had bits and pieces of information about him. He is a Nord. His origin is Winterhold. He is a nobleman and a great sorcerer, and had to do with something called the collapse. She felt very grateful for him when he protected her from the influence of Armilius the False, the chained man in the Tower of Babel. They began as enemies and ended on good terms, but she later figured out that he is not from the past as she thought he was, but rather from the future. What happened to her that day in the heart of chaos left her with a scar she can never heal, and she never got to know that friend. She remembers this exact moment when she told him her name and asked him to find her. He almost lost his cool, and everyone around him had a dumb look on their faces. Even the Lord of Madness Shiagarath himself was screaming from shock. Once he tried to tell her something. His friends dragged him away by force and pushed her in a portal that returned her to her timeline. This was something she never understood and knew that she will never understand. If it was the only thing, then it would have been fine, but she wanted too many answers, and she realized that this friend of hers would just be the key. Hell, she even needed questions for her questions. The more she thinks of it, that's how far Nerina was lost. From the day she left the chaos, she went to her master Alf Fyr, who refused her like the plague. Before venturing into the chaos, she asked for Alf's guidance to go against the Daedric princes and restore her family, but even Lord Divaith Fyr forbade her from that. Nerina went against their orders and joined the cult of Sithiz at the age of 31 to draw power from the origin of chaos, a power that can threaten the Daedric princes, and if not enough to kill them, then it would seal them. The young Nerina was out for too many questions and a blood vengeance against the Titans themselves. After her return and getting chased away by Alf, She traveled to Winterhold for the first time, but the capital of Skyrim at that time was not welcoming to the Dark Elves. She gathered the information she wanted, and went on her way traveling the world. She spent most of her time in High Rock or Cyrodiil, but she always kept visiting Winterhold once every 1 or 2 years to gather clues. Her only clue was that Winterhold will face some collapse. She didn't know what sort of a future she was up against, and her investigation yielded no apparent results for a very long time. With time, people tend to lose hope, and Nurina wasn't much different. Almost 50 years have passed since she came out of chaos and no sign for anything. By that time, she managed to redeem herself to Divaith and Alf Fyr and was accepted again under their mantle. Without much hope of finding the answers she sought after, her vengeance against the Daedra was still a driving force. She caused great pain to the Daedric cults and annihilated a lot of evil. She even snuck into many Daedric realms and committed atrocities against the Daedra, but like anyone else, she was still powerless against the princes themselves, yet that didn't mean she was completely useless. In her blood, she carried a terrible power known as the Chaos Infection. It was what was passed to her by getting exposed to mere fragments of a blood drop from Armilius the False. She refined that chaos into a terrifying power and even killed a demi-prince once. Still, that infection gave her nightmares and caused her great pain. She reverted to drinking to ease the pain, but it took her years to fully wield it. It wasn't until another 50 years had passed when finally the news arrived. The great collapse of Winterhold. She left everything in her hands and traveled to Winterhold to investigate, only to see no trace of the great city. Only the college remained standing, with the land around it was gone, as if taken by the Titan of the sea. Other than the college, there was a camp of Nord survivors who were beyond hope and despair. With the collapse that finally happened, Nurina insisted to uncover its reason, but that stubbornness of hers, which drove her to find answers to everything even at the far depth of the abyss, was the same stubbornness that drove her almost hopeless once again. The truth of the great collapse was nothing but that wound that made her the person she is today. It all began when she was 6 years of age, during the Oblivion Crisis, when her father died to a Daedric creature. As the crisis was over in the rest of the world, it wasn't quite the case in Morrowind, and especially the city of Vivec. During the crisis, Vivec, the king of the city, disappeared, and without his presence, a titanic rock hung above the city was about to fall and crush it. 2 dark elves made a pact with the Daedric prince Clavicus Vile to give them a method that keeps this rock in its place, but such a method needed thousands of blood sacrifices. Nurina's mother was taken by a random selection when she was 11. After that, the machine that hung the rock was compromised and the gigantic rock fell on the city in full momentum. That day, the city of Vivec was wiped off the face of Nirn, with only one unrecorded sole survivor. Nurina Aran. The rock hung above the city of Vivec is thought to have been tossed from the void by a Daedric prince. Read about the Bardau in USP. Image Bardau is uploaded on IG and Discord, links at the end of the chapter. The tragedy of Vivec City was the disaster that caused the Red Mountain to erupt in year 4 E5. The Red Year became a global disaster that affected far more than just Morrowind. The Great Collapse in Winterhold was another result of the destruction of Vivec. It was caused by an earthquake that happened under the sea as an aftershock from the volcanic Red Mountain. The tragedy of Winterhold was the same tragedy that made her, and since then, she decided to stay. She took it as a sign and stayed in the College of Winterhold, confining herself from interfering with the hold. Time changed Nurina. She distanced herself from the magic community even with her great titles and high seniority in the line of Divaith Fyr. As she let go of all the questions that she kept asking all her life, she started to find some solace and salvation. She even got married once but discovered that she is infertile, and the marriage was ruined. Thus she stayed with Faralda, who became some sort of a soul mate to her. Things became easier and easier with time, and her life became slow, boring, peaceful, and dull. She wanted it this way and quite enjoyed it too. She also developed a strange fondness of children, and always thought about adoption, but she wasn't quite sure. Many years passed, and she forgot all about her past. She became the lazy, drunk, clumsy Nurina, and loved her lifestyle. She even wanted to try her luck at raising children, and became an orphanage caretaker in Riften. It was then when she met a certain child. A child whose world was falling apart even when he was less than a year old. She never suspected much and took the child under her care. With time, she grew fond and attached to him. He was even making it worse by his curiosity and obsession of magic and anything related to the craft. Thus, she taught him from the very fine basics to the mind-flipping theories, which he absorbed all and even started researching them. His talent was monstrous. He even would spout nonsensical excuses about past life and his peerless handsomeness, yet even if that was true, it still wouldn't explain his talent. Days passed and years followed. Nurina delayed her return to the College of Winterhold, just to watch that child grow in an environment he is familiar with, and before she knew it, she adopted him and made him her legacy disciple. Even with his biological mother showing up, he wasn't the unfilial type. Finally, that day came when he became 15 and had to leave the orphanage. She excused herself as well and decided to take him to the College of Winterhold, where his talent can grow further. Since the day she brought he to Winterhold, not a day was quiet or peaceful. Everything was changing and revolving around him. Every action he made impacted the Winterhold significantly. Nurina feared that she may have caused an alteration to the future by bringing him to Winterhold, yet nothing she could do about it. Her child was just moving with the momentum of fate. Business, money, battles, politics. Nurina hid from the world in Winterhold, yet he brought the world to Winterhold. She has long since forgotten about what happened in chaos by that time. John even got himself into trouble, and out of it, but she had to leave him to rely on his own power and face his fate. That until he returned to her one day. One look at him and it was just it. It was all there. Every question she ever asked, every stone she ever turned, every clue she ever followed for 200 years, the answer was right in front of her. Once she felt the chaos infection running on his blood. The things she forgot and the things she tried to forget all came together to make perfect and clear sense. He is her son, her baby boy. He is the one she met 175 years ago. Was all her life just a coincidental survival? Was all her misery a curse by the Daedra? No. It was all fate preparing her, making her into who she is, giving her all the solutions and granting her all the credit. It was her fate and her reward. Nurina was never much of a believer, but now she believed. If her fate was to meet John, to be his mentor, to give him power and see him rise, then this is better than anything she ever dreamt of. She is lucky. She is a winner. It is said that behind every great man, there is a great woman. In John's case, that woman is not Hilda, not Jullinar, and certainly not Alina. It is her. She raised the dragon. Let all the world shiver in her wake and bask in her glory. She looked at him with tears finally flowing from her eyes. Welcome home. John silently put his head on her lap and closed his eyes. Yeah, I'm home. The College of Winterhold. The College of Winterhold was always shunned by the Nords, and until this very day, no one liked the magic or the mages this much. Winterhold as a city was an exception, as a big part of the economy is dependent on the college, but problems would arise from time to time with the Nords who recently moved to the city. Other than that, the college started to receive more attention than before from the outside world. John Dare is surely the culprit, but the college itself started developing from inside alongside Winterhold, and was stretching its influence to the other holds all around Skyrim. Archmage Savos Aran was surely ambitious, and wanted to expand whenever he got the chance, and the DDC assisted him. With that, many young Nords would enroll in the college to graduate and find work in the DDC either as battle mages, researchers, alchemists, or enchanters. Inside the college, the situation was as busy as ever. Students and scholars were holding lectures, and the 8 departments were on each other's throats, especially today. Why? It is the enrollment day. The college accepts students 4 times every year, and the departments would work as hard as they could to attract students. With alchemy, one unravels the secrets of the matter and browses the wonder of nature. 2 alchemists stood behind a table as they performed colorful tricks with their flasks and ingredients. Alchemy? Is that even magic? Who needs unraveling the matter when you can master the matter? Turn what is cheap to something expensive. In alteration, you can even protect yourself from any spell or blade. 2 alteration apprentices on a stage not far from them showed off their arcane skill. Did I hear that right, friend? Alteration protects you? Maybe at minimal, but when it comes to protecting or even healing and fighting the undead, there is no school beyond restoration, my friends. Join our department. 2 restoration mages performed the most radiant magic to attract attention. Restoration? Isn't that the magic they teach at basically any temple? These people came to the college to see true magic, and there is nothing more arcane in this world than illusion. Master the ways of the mind, unravel the secrets of the hidden senses. Join the illusion department. 2 illusionists made music and lights using their staves to attract the crowd. Illusion? I wonder what is turning invisible good for, unless for running away. This is enchanting. You don't need any school of magic and craft after this. At any magic application, enchanting is always essential. An enchanter said as he sent up a floating staff and robes that looked well crafted and abundant with magic. Ha! Friends, we all came here for one thing and one thing only. Blow stuff up, freeze it to death, shock it to the morrow. We are the most popular department for a reason. Be with the cool kids and join the destruction department. A pyromancer rode on the shoulder of 2 others and started shooting out flames. Those destruction metalheads are too noisy. This is a flame Atronak, and that's a frost Atronak. Do I need to tell you more? Who needs to dirty their hands if they have such mighty servants, or maybe delve into a darker endeavor? We are not shy. Join the conjuration department. A conjurer rode on a flame Atronak horse bragging with his summons. Bitch please. Mysticism is this way. A mystic floated on air while crossing legs as he manipulated the arcane energy to teleport around while levitating. It was fairly clear that all the departments were on edge, but one thing was certain about most of the Nord students. The first thing they would ask about is which department does Thane John Dare belong to. Mysticism was popular for such a reason, but the numbers would always decrease when people realize how insane that department is, and they would transfer to other departments. Alina observed the situation from above the roof as the main yard of the college was as busy as a Friday market. As a teacher in the academy, she has a large role to play in managing the students of the mysticism department, and she will be assisting Master Tolfter in the coming lectures for the new students. Master Alina, I've finished. A young voice called for her, and as she turned around, she saw Beth coming alongside Lonath. Congratulations on the application, Beth. And Senior, thank you for taking care of her. Alina received Beth cheerfully. It's a pleasure, she's such a sweet girl, Lonath said as she patted Beth on the shoulder. Hey Beth. Why don't you go and find John? He is over there with Master Nurina, Alina said. All right, I'll go greet Master and Grandmaster, Beth said as she ran to where Alina pointed her. Lonath and Alina watched Beth go and looked at each other. Not his child, right? Lonath asked. Senior, surely you jest. Kid is 12, John is John, all right, but even he can't have a kid when he is 8. Alina smiled. Oh, look at you, all nerves of steel and all. Hubby is now home and you can act all relaxed and cute now. Lonath teased her. That's a given. I am not the most beautiful and cutest in the world for nothing. Alina acted all high and mighty. Tisk, you're as a brat as he is. Lonath punched Alina in the shoulder and stood beside her at the balcony. Good numbers this year, we'll have a lot of work. True. John asked me to be on college duty for the coming few months. Alina replied. Why? He didn't say, from what it looks like, something in the college is concerning him. It is also fun to teach, so I'll be sticking around you and Master for a while. Alina said, then kept looking at the yard of the college with a frown. What's on your mind? Lonath asked. I don't know. Relax. By the way, that girl Beth seemed to have run into that Falmer spy. Lonath said. And Kano? Alina reacted violently. Yes. He seemed to have started questioning her, but she got on his nerves a bit too fast compared to others. Lonath said. By Kine. I just can't understand how the Archmage let a Falmer into the college. It is an insult to everything Winterhold stands for. If John finds out, Alina was about to throw a tantrum. Hey, calm down. You know how much the Falmer are deeply involved in the politics of the magic community. If the college went against them publicly, we may lose a lot of relationships with the other academies and institute. Also, we agreed that we can afford a spy that we can monitor. Lonath said. I know. John won't interfere with the college, but he won't like it. Alina was still upset. Are you upset about the Falmer or are upset about something else? Lonath teased Alina. Alright, I am upset. Why does every time I try to be alone with John, someone has to be with him? I want my husband and I want him now. Alina stomped the ground. Here it is, the Alina we know and love. Lonath pinched Alina from her cheek. Stop it. Speaking of John, I was waiting for a moment to drop by and talk to him. Let's see what his 2 years' journey has uncovered. Senior, you're a bully. Ahaha. The two kept conversing until Lonath finally spoke out her true purpose. Alina, Mirabelle Irvine wanted you to receive this list of freshmen. They are all under Master Tolfter's guidance, so you'll manage them. Shouldn't Master Tolfter be the one managing his people? Alina asked. We are lucky he still remembers his name. Also, weren't you the one who asked to be assisting with the first year? Lonath asked. Yeah. Alina received the list quietly. Truth be told, it was one of John's instructions that were in his message. John wanted her to be around the first-year student that will apply this summer. He didn't say the reason, but she didn't mind. Alina finally opened the list and observed the names. A troublesome bunch it seems. Jargo, Acaciat, Onmund, Anord. Not so promising. Wait and see, you have a Telvanni down the list and guess what? Mysticism. Lonath pointed. Brelina Marion? That's some royal blood among you Dunmare. Guess there is some potential at least. I'll leave you to your duties then. Thank you, Senior. Alina took the students' list and seemed to be willing to do some work as long as it is an easy task that will finally end with her going back home to John. Little did she know what he had for her in store. Here is Nurina's status, which was censored before. Name, Nurina Aran. Titles: High Priestess of Sithis, Daedric Nemesis. Race, Elf Dunmare. Age, 207. Level: Class, Arch-Mystic of Chaos. Energy: Condition, Normal. Bloodline, Chaotic. Birth sign, the Mage. Blessings: Sithis Mara. Chapter 524: What We Have in Store. ly/2dx3dx. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Instagram at Don_Dokmasi. Twitter at Eldokmezi22. On the roof of the Hall of the Elements, John and Nurina were sitting alone on a wooden bench as he was showing her a flame that he conjured on his hand. I have heard the stories, yet after 201 years, the legend comes back to life, Nurina said. I tried smoking some weed with it last night, it was amazing, John replied. You little shit. You used an eternal flame to smoke? This thing. I don't think this is something any magic can replicate at all. Nerina was closely inspecting the flame that John summoned on his hand. The dragonfires. This flame disappeared from the world over 200 years ago with the death of the last Septim Emperor, Martin Septim. The dragonfires is the symbol of Akatosh given to the Dragonborn emperors. John acquired it when the blessing of the Dragon Guardian was absorbed by the blessing of Akatosh, and the ashen flame mutated into the dragon's fire. Dragonfires, eternal flame, summoned by igniting the dragon blood. A divine flame with scorching, cleansing, and protecting properties. It seems like an all-purpose eternal flame. Nothing too fancy, John said. Nerina looked at him with the urge to throw him off the roof, yet she couldn't help but laugh at his silly joke. She really missed it. It surely is interesting, but the dragonfires in your case depend on your vitality. It is not a problem to you since you achieved the astral access, which gives you a passive equilibrium between life force and magicka, but don't overdo it. Nerina noted, also, you can ignite it using your blood, not by a medium like the emperors of the past. They would rely on the Chimiel Adabal to manipulate the dragonfires, but you just naturally do it. Chimiel Adabal means Royal Honorable Godstone. It is the red gem of the Amulet of Kings. I am awesome, let's keep it to that. Won't lie, you are impressing me. What else can you do? She asked. Something called the Inner Dragon. Now I know what you're thinking, and no, I don't have a dragon inside me, John said. John's other power that replaced the dragon affinity was the Inner Dragon. Inner Dragon. Incomplete. Nerina put her palm on John's back and sent a strong wave of magicka to try and awaken any hidden entity inside him, but it was of no use. That's a shame. I wanted to see a dragon sticking out from you, she said. Wow. You are merciless, John said. Either way, if the ability mutated and never brought out its full potential, then it means that it still needs more of the energy that fed it. You mean a dragon soul? John asked. I am not sure how you are so in peace about fighting another dragon to death, but yeah, another dragon soul or maybe a few more may awaken this ability. Still, you must refine the one inside you now first. Nerina provided guidance. John thought for a while as he inspected the dragon's energy inside himself. Truth be told, I have never experienced such harmony while absorbing any energy before. The dragon's soul entered my energy core and started nourishing me slowly for the past 2 days, but I had that weird thing happening. John said. What is it? I took a try at refining the dragon's soul yesterday, but I noticed that it wasn't increasing my power that much. Not the way I wanted anyway, John said. Explain further, Nerina said. How do I say it? Imagine building a tower and trying to make that tower go higher, except that when I use Dragon Soul, the tower doesn't really go up faster, but it feels like the Dragon Soul is making it grow wider, John said. Grow wider? Nerina tilted her head, but suddenly, her eyes widened. This can't, oh my. It is enhancing your foundations. My foundations? John frowned. My foundations were always firm. You always said that my magicka is purer and richer than some high elven mages. Yes, but that was in the past before you awakened as a Dragonborn. Absorbing a dragon's soul is bound to change your soul. Changing your soul changes your body and foundations. You are a human now, but you are also becoming more than just that. I guess that is one of the reasons why the rules don't apply on the Dragonborns. Nerina wasn't good at delivering shocking news without causing the other party to panic, and John was making their weirdest of faces. Wait, you mean I am becoming something that is not human? He asked. No. You are like a Dragonborn human. Call it whenever you want, but that's the most logical explanation. Part of your soul is divine after all. I see, John said, trying not to panic too soon. All in all, you are reaching a new potential. It is good, but remember that you mustn't slack off. Higher potential means a longer journey ahead. I am proud of you, she said as she messed up his hair. Thanks. Other than that, the dragon's soul seemed to have memories of its own, especially regarding the Thursday. John added. Great. You will train on the voice like the good old days then. How about I record and observe your progress again? She asked. Don't remember you asking for permissions before. Oh, believe me, I wasn't. He. Asterisk ha ha. She asked him about everything there is regarding the Dragonborn abilities, and provided him with her insights and advice on how to cope with his new power. Nerina always gets excited when John comes with things he can't solve, and they keep conversing for hours if possible. After Nerina mustered up her courage, she started asking John about the details of their journey in the chaos. During the past year, John has asked all these questions to Shadow, and thus he got answers. He knows that the place was an abyss and it is a sealing place for many evil things. The sunken Tower of Babel is there to be the sealing ground for its architecture. Who fancies himself to be God, the man known as Armilus the False. More to the mess, the beast that met them is the guardian, and it is there to examine those who come and go, as the place always has visitors. John and Nerina got a strange mark of protection called the Mark of the Beast, and it is to ward off the influence of Armilus. Armilus tried to mark them as well with his blood, but the Mark of the Beast was stronger and resisted the corruption. From what it seems, the mark John carries is a special one and has something to do with peace. Shadow carries a similar one that is related to virtue. You? Peace? Nerina asked. I know, right? John agreed. I think it is related to your standing regarding the Civil War. It would seem so, but I am not sure how the mark of a beast would help with peace. I don't even see it. Maybe time will tell. Yeah. The two of them left things to fate regarding what they don't know. They are powerhouses and all, but even they have limits when it comes to knowing things. And speaking of limits, John finally got the chance to ask Nerina a question. What on earth is that, Nerina? John said, showing up the ring on his hand. She raised her brows and didn't know how to respond at first, but finally made her mind. The ring she gave him a long time ago carries an important secret after all. She held the ring and undid some sort of a seal, then pulled it out. This, my dumbass student, a very sophisticated ring that I put a curse on, she said. What? Got stones in your ears, boy? I said a curse. Yeah, I heard it the first time, but I wasn't sure my ears got it right, John said. Good, can't afford you dumb and deaf now, can I? Okay, let me rephrase it correctly. John said and shouted, What on NARN, woman? What do you mean by a curse? John returned to be calm. Got my point now. Aha. I see what you mean. Wait. Don't tell me, you're afraid of curses. Mimic John O. Look at me, I am John Dare and I fear nothing except curses, wah wah. Okay, the curse. Why did you put a curse on the ring? Because you're a dumbass who may lose it or something. The curse on the ring makes you forget to take it off, and if you remember somehow, it makes it impossible to take it off by normal means. I encrypted the spell a few times so that you can't figure it out, Nerina said. Actually, to encrypt something by magic runes and make John unable to figure it out is quite the feat. John is a master enchanter after all. He can easily take the ring off by using the skeleton key. But there seemed to be more to the ring that Nerina just told. I know that the ring has a recording function, John said. You knew? She was taken aback. A time recording function, to be precise. TSK, now I regret teaching you too well, she said with a bit of frustration, then sighed and held the ring up. It is just some countermeasure in case something happened to you. Her words were finally genuine, and she wasn't trying to lose him in the conversation. So you record my time, put a sophisticated curse on it so you can use it to travel back in my timeline if by any chance I died? John concluded with narrowed eyes. Nerina's eyes widened, but she soon realized that she fell into a trap. John wasn't sure as he said that, so he was monitoring her reaction, but he was mostly trying to make a guess, which hit the mark accurately. Seeing John, who was coldly looking at her, she realized that he is no longer all laughs and smiles. "TSK, I really taught you way too much," she said. "I am grateful for the effort you took, but you realize the consequences of such magic. Traveling back in time, this recklessly may cause a devastating consequence. You taught me that 175 years ago, right? You will cause a dragon break, two realities snapping at the same time with me dying in one and living in another. It may return me but will fuck the rest of the world." "Hey, language!" "Yes, be silent, you insolent student, and watch your fucking tongue." Nerina acted offended and looked away after successfully changing the subject. Meanwhile, John was simply baffled. Even if she caused a dragon break, she wouldn't even regret it, would she now? So shameless. "I truly admire you." John gave up. Nerina smiled widely and turned to him. "That's my baby boy," she said. "Still, I want to know how you made it. I've been thinking about it for a year and I never understood how an object can make a backup for reality and record time itself." John's inquiry made Nerina go back into teacher mode. "That is a good question. There is no way a non-living object can record time, thus if you want to employ it to do that much, you need something that can do so and seal it into it," she said. "So an object sealed into another. Quite the formidable technique. What is that sealed object then?" That last question made Nerina very happy. "Watch closely." Nerina carried the ring between two fingers and then turned her fingers to the other direction as if making a hand trick. In that case, a pigeon should normally come flying from her sleeve or the ring turning into a playing card, but it was not the case this time. This was some of the most real magic John has ever seen. Reality itself was manipulated to Nerina's will and the ring became. John jumped off his place with a pale face. "Why are those things popping up so much these days?" "An Elder Scroll. It is mine, the one I had from 175 years ago," she said. "How? But we were together with the same Elder Scroll? I know it is confusing, but the Elder Scrolls exist by their own rules, and the Elder Scroll of the Unrecorded is weirder than the other scrolls," she said. "The Unrecorded?" John asked. "Yes. It shows things that aren't recorded in history yet altered its course significantly. I haven't read it though." "Woman, you're insane, and that's me admitting it," John said with a tired face. "I'll take it as a compliment then," Nerina said, and noticed someone approaching. She quickly returned the Elder Scroll into its sealing ring and held out John's hand, quickly jamming it back on his finger. "Hey," John said as he seemed to be unwilling to put it back. "That's not up to you." Nerina raised a finger and spoke seriously before turning to the one approaching them. Once she saw a young girl coming their way, she smiled cheerfully. "Well, aren't you a lovely little thing?" Nerina spoke to Beth. Beth walked towards them hurriedly as she was lifting up her oversized college robes. "Grandmaster, Master." Beth greeted Nerina and John. "Master, this is Beth. She's my apprentice. I introduced her to you yesterday, but you were quite absent-minded," John said, justifying Nerina's reactions the other day. "Oh, that was just a busy day." Nerina waved her hand and turned to Beth. "You look quite good for your age, 12 and almost an adept, not bad at all." "Thank you, Grandmaster," Beth said, full of excitement. John started introducing Beth, properly starting with her origins to her experience and talent all the way to her mystic tattoo unique skills. "I have never seen or heard about anything like this mystic tattoo. Maybe some paints and body marks were a result of making pacts with higher beings, but that's as far as we know. to make a tattoo that can suppress the aura or even to channel the chaos. I would have loved meeting someone like that a long time ago," Nerina said. "I see your point," John agreed. Unlike John, who used tattoo to control the chaos, Nerina had nothing to use, which made her refine the blood of chaos directly in her blood, causing her great pain. Her infertility is a side effect of such practice. "What about you? Why do you have so many tattoos on your body and face?" Nerina asked. "I was born like that," Beth said. "I see, it may be a mutated bloodline in the end, just like mine. Very rare to happen, most unlikely to be powerful. In your case, yours is good, Baldy," Nerina said, patting Beth's head. Nerina stood up from the stone bench and nodded to John. "Guide her well. Did you do that initiation ceremony?" "Not yet." John shook his head. "Shouldn't have all the fun to myself, should I?" "Well done, let's set a time and a place for that then. Right now, I have a lot of paperwork to be done with, or pass it to Loneth." "Maybe. Let's get out of here." John took Beth and initiated a fast retreat, knowing that Nerina was thinking about dumping some of her work on him. Classic Nerina. "Hey, don't turn your back on your master. Is that how you teach your student?" Nerina shouted. Lesson 1, Beth. Never lower your guard, Nerina. After getting out of the college, John had a lot of free time now. He sent Beth home and went to visit Master Nerelian the alchemist and returned the white phial to him. The two had a very deep conversation about John's moon crystal ether, lust. And John gifted him a few meteoric glass crystals that he once extracted from the abyss almost 2 years ago. With that, the old man was very happy, as his transformation potion, which he gave to John when he fled Skyrim, was repaid with a handsome benefit. Following John Dare to Winterhold was surely the best decision he made. After finishing up with Master Nerelian, John was still free, so he decided to visit Isha and Mirren, who were choosing a new house for themselves. After 2 years of living like vagrants, John wanted those two to have a place to settle in. Mirren was completely fine, while Isha was skeptical about living in Winterhold away from Hammerfell. She holds the title of the Spear Battlelord now, even though she didn't want to have it, as she saw herself to never be a match for either her master or her brother. John didn't tell her what happened to Zane's body in the heart of chaos, but he always felt some guilt towards not giving him a proper burial. Still, with Alina showing Isha around, the latter finally made peace with her conflicted thoughts. On the other hand, there was Miranda, who kept alienating herself for some reason. She felt rather strange around John's family. The most intimate family she experienced was her master in Elsewhere, her brother Mirren, her sworn sister Isha, and her lover John. Getting to know all those faces all at once was overwhelming her a little bit. As Mirren and Miranda are both parts of Mir, they were always close and would complete each other easily, but when Mir was struck by the chaos infection when he went to save John, he was getting weaker and weaker, making strange effects appear on both Mirren and Miranda. It is strange that mortals like John and Nerina were getting stronger by controlling the infection, while a pseudo-immortal like Mir was dying from it. John would always try to maintain Mir in both Mirren and Miranda, but somehow, Mir himself was slowly trying to let go. What would happen if Mir was gone? Nothing. Mirren and Miranda will stay as what they are, but will never be Mir again. It is very sad that such a pure and innocent person may fade from existence any moment just because his essence is dissolving in the world. The Ellenfae were always doomed to this fate, which is nothing fair. It still felt like the Altmare twins are being orphaned at the rate they are losing connection to Mir. The only difference is, Mirren was respecting Mir's decision while Miranda wanted to save Mir. John hoped to stop the chaos infection from consuming Mir, but he is powerless with it at the moment. Not even Nerina would be able to halt such a process anyway. With his new worries weighing him, John put his head together and decided to fix things one at a time. Eventually, there is an answer for everything. Augur. John spoke as he was watching Winterhold from the nearby mountain. You are willing to talk now? Always, old friend. How is your analysis doing so far? John asked. It is beyond my ability. The experience you have been through is truly beyond this world. You deserve all the praise that can be spared for making it this far. The augur seemed to be showing emotion for the first time since the day John met him. It caused John to shake his head. I hope that one day you will find what you are seeking. What I seek is the truth further. It was the last will before my death. You helped me see something I would have never seen on my own, and for that, you have repaid all the help I offered you, if not more. John has long since understood what the entity called the augur is all about. As the remnant of the soul and astral form of a very talented mystic, the augur was someone whose goal was to satisfy his curiosity and no more. Thus the college kept him for the sake of the answers they can't get on their own. Knowing more is his only quest. However, his only flaw is his inability to keep it to himself. The augur may give a warning before answering, but will eventually answer with all his knowledge. Come on. Don't tell me you are going to pass on after fulfilling your last attachment in the world, John said sarcastically. That would be too soon. I think sticking with you will give me more to analyze and study. I fulfill what I want and you get benefited, even though both of us know that you don't need me anymore. That's right. I no longer need your services, John said and smiled. After what I experienced in the chaos, I am now too formidable. I don't see a limit to myself, quite frankly. Before, I needed you to divert the Daedra from looking into my head, but now, the Daedra can't manipulate me anymore. They can never see through me no matter what they do, and they can never influence me even if I am in their realms. John started some hard facts as he sat down on top of the southern hills overlooking Winterhold. I can even generate the system by my own head now and play 1,000 different songs at the same time. I can close my eyes and live 1,000 years inside my mind, then open my eyes and not a second has passed. Can you offer me more, augur? No, the augur answered like a machine. I know. John nodded. Still, I need you around. Talking to myself would make me more insane than what I already am. You also have a good sense of humor sometimes, and I still feel indebted for your help. I am not some ungrateful bastard. I understand. Nice. Everything John said has a very strong truth backing it. He experienced the chaos and his mind is more formidable than anything else. Nurina may have had a similar experience, but she didn't lose herself in the chaos, didn't go through a literal existential crisis, and didn't have to put herself back together. That is why John's journey in the chaos was unique. More to that, John also has the same power as Nurina that she used to stand against the Daedric princes, the chaos infection. The power they inherited from the man who is called Armalus, the one who defied the heavens. Augur, tell me your thoughts on the chaos infection. Chaos infection, variable effect. The purest form of defiance to all worldly laws. Chaos is invincible, indestructible, and very unstable. Amazing, isn't it? I can defy all the laws, block the Daedra from reading my mind, and free myself from their influence. I will have a lot of fun regarding some future enemies that I want to take care of. Thankfully, my identity is safe with all the Daedra except Molag Bal, and I have a lot of unfinished business with the vampires. John started thinking for a while. Aside from the dragons, he has to take care of two threats, which are the vampires and the cult of Mirak. Both are supported by a Daedric prince each. Regarding Molag Bal, he knew that John once came to him in Markarth and offered human sacrifice in exchange for power. Molag asked for agony and he got what he wanted, but he backstabbed John with the vampires. This was one of the reasons why John hid his identity during the labors as Krylin and now as the Dragonborn. Molag Bal knows John Dare, and thus the Fokihar vampires know too. If John was known to be Krylin, the labor of Azura, to the Molag Bal, Serana's betrayal would be revealed, and this time, the Fokihar vampires would directly attack Winterhold, which is extremely dangerous. Either way, John had to keep an eye on the Fokihar vampires who are still trapped in Kaldharbor, and that eye is this guy. Mortal. Ahahaha, we are back to this place. Remember the last time we were here, we had lots of fun and killed a lot of mortals. Let's do it again. Ha 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 ha. Evil bastard. John looked annoyed at the creature he summoned. It is his good old pal, Zyko. A former low-ranked Draemora, a current Daedric Titan whose size is half that of a dragon, but his appearance is a few times as dreadful as any dragon. Keep your voice down. How is the situation in the Hollow City? John asked. Expanding. Sir Caldwell may be a little bit hollow-headed himself, but he's managing the herd. Zykel said. Good. And the merchandise? John asked. The storages are full. The realm is expanding and we are discovering a few new places. How lucky you are, mortal, to have a Daedric realm under your command all by yourself. Sub-realm. John corrected him. I want to visit the Hollow City, but my presence will make some questions rise and may cause some entities to notice our little project. Either way, once I get things fixed here, the next phase shall go up and running. Hee. I am excited. Now, tell me about the Fokihar vampires? Have you been monitoring them? John asked. They don't question my presence too much, so I know a fair share about them. After you escaped, the henchmen of the Vampire Lord were in a disagreement about what to do. They think that you were taken by the fellow called Krylin, and they wanted to travel back to Nirn through an old portal, but their lord stopped them and uncovered the mystery behind the sabotage of his domain. He extracted a strange vampiric plant which drained all the energy of the chaotic creation of his place and sealed it somewhere, but the domain still needs to be recharged to return to Nirn. How long will it take them? Not long. That's not good. I don't think I would be able to finish up with Alduin before that. I still don't know much about Solstheim either. John said as he started thinking deeply. All right. I'll contact you once again once I am ready to start the next phase. Mortal, is it close? John thought as he took out his sword, Bloodskull, and raised it up, inspecting it. The blade seemed to have taken a lot of damage because of the immense energy that controlled it for 2 years, and it needed to be reforged. I have been a thorn to the side of both the Imperials and the Stormcloaks for 5 years. With the war at its current scale, someone would do something stupid. The Imperial General Tullius is new in Skyrim and as rash as how he was to capture Ulfric Stormcloak. He will try to deal with me soon. And I need more dragon souls. Goddammit, why do I have to do so much? You were taking a vacation for a whole year, you shameless mortal. Watch your tongue, lowly Deidre. I have been training all my life for this, so let's see what fate and I have for each other in store, and God as my witness, I am bringing down the fucking storm. Status. Name: John Dare, John Hild Firemane. Title: The Boss, Thane of Winterhold, Krylin. Race: Human, Nord. Age: 20. Level: Early Frozen Heart Formation. Game level: 69. Class: Master Mystic Warrior. Craft: Master Binary Enchanter. Condition: Normal. Bloodline: Firemane, Fireborn/Titanborn. Birth sign: Serpent, Shadow. Soul bonds: Familiar, Nefertiti. Inner Dragon, or Domain, Hidden Dragon Isle. Greed, Dark Matter. Wrath, Odakuro. Pride, Elder Staff. Lust, Moon Crystal. Powers, Nord. Battle Cry, active. 50% Frost Resistance. Firemane. Fireborn. 50% fire resistance. Titanborn, Beast Master. Astral Access. Vitality and Magicka Equilibrium. Eternal Flesh. Disease Immunity. Serpent Birth Sign. Serpent Tyranny. Compatible with all birth signs. Ozidal's genius. Ozidal's enchanting knowledge. Gotfang martial style. Force channeling martial arts. Enchanted tattoos 21%. Channel all energy into the tattoo to increase efficiency and bind them from leaking out or losing control. Chaos infection. The purest form of defiance to all worldly laws. Chaos is invincible, indestructible, and very unstable. Blessings, Akatosh. Dragonborn. The gift of the dragon's blood and soul, highest affinity to the Thursdayum, highest affinity to the element of time. Dragon's fire, eternal flame, active. Inner dragon, not complete. All-maker, root of power, 2500% magicka regeneration, active. Talos. Greater amulet of Talos, fortify Thursdayum 50%. Old man's coin, fortify luck. Kine, Thunderchild, 25% empower Thursdayum. Shiagarath, Mad Champion, 2500% vitality regen, active. Azura Dawn's Beauty, 50% absorb magic attacks, active. Bothia Berserk. Take half damage and do double damage in a feral state of mind, active. Mephala Golden Tongue, persuasive to all beings, active. Hermias Mora Bardic Knowledge. Summon knowable music instruments to cause a tonal effect, active. The Shadow Stone. Hide in shadows. Fortify stealth in through the shadows. Blur. Fortify speed during combat. Pride. The Elder Staff of Power and Fate. Imagination Magic. Will of Pride. Greed. Devouring Shadow Ether. Reform Weapons. Perfect Stealth. Lust, Moon Crystal Ether. Metamorphosis. Desire Inducement. Wrath, Bone Samurai Colossus, Odakuro. Howl of Wrath. Howl of Death. Bone Lord. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.